We respectfully acknowledge that the Township of Algonquin Highlands is located on Treaty 20 Mississauga territory and in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa Nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations. We also acknowledge a historic shared presence of other Indigenous nations throughout the area, and we recognize these original inhabitants as the stewards of its lands and waters since time immemorial. Could I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda? Councillor Shortreed, Deputy Mayor Dayu. Just a note that we will be breaking at 11 for closed session. So we'll have to interrupt if we're in the middle of something.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, seconded by Deputy Mayor Dayu. Be it resolved that the November 21st, 2024 meeting agenda be approved as circulated.
All in favor? That's carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof today? Hearing none. Could I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the minutes of November the 7th? Councillors Shortreed and Richards.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, seconded by Councillor Richards. Be it resolved the November 7th, 2024 regular meeting minutes be approved as circulated.
All in favor? That's carried. We have no public meetings, delegations, or presentations today. Did anyone wish to pull any of the items from the consent agenda for discussion today? Seeing none, could I have a mover and a seconder to approve the consent agenda? Councillor Shortreed, Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, seconded by Deputy Mayor Dayu. Be it resolved the items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and enacted in one motion, and that each matter of business contained in the consent agenda is recorded separately in the minutes of the meeting, and that Council has reviewed the consent agenda consisting of various staff reports containing proposed recommendations, and further Council approve and adopt the November 21st, 2024 consent agenda and recommendations contained in the staff report, and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions.
All in favor? That's carried. Building and bylaw is up first. Good morning, Mr. Moore.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. The first report is the monthly activity report. Nothing out of the ordinary to report there. We ended up with 21,000 in permit fees and construction value in excess of $3.5 million.
I've got to say, I was really pleased to see reports of some increased activity listed on your report. Good to see that we're keeping you busy.
Yeah, yeah. So hopefully that's a trend to go up because we need it.
Are there any questions from council on the monthly activity report? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder to receive it? Deputy Mayor Dayu, Councillor Richards.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Dayu, seconded by Councillor Richards. Be it resolved, Council receives building bylaw report BLDG 2024 regarding monthly activities for information.
All in favor? That's carried. And you're looking to surplus a vehicle and order a new one.
I am. Our 2016 Equinox is experiencing some terrible troubles. It has been starting to go downhill for a couple of years now. This particular vehicle, for whatever reason. It is, as the report says, I have a quote from the dealership that talks to about $3,600 in repairs that need to be done to keep it on the road at present, plus a $1,200 estimation on winter tires. So we're looking at about $5,000 on a vehicle that wholesales for around that. I feel that we might be able to get upwards to 7,000 if we sell it now, whereas if we waited till the term, we'd end up with nothing. We'd end up maybe $3,000, which we're going to look at spending $5,000. So that's why I'm looking forward to, or I'm looking for approval to surplus the car a year ahead of time.
questions or comments from council? Well, it sounds like that's a go. So could I have a mover and a seconder to approve surplusing the vehicle and looking at acquisition of a new one? Councillor Short-Reed and Richards.
Moved by Counselor Short-Reed, seconded by Counselor Richards. Be it resolved, council receives building bylaw report BLDG 2124 regarding the request to surplus a fleet vehicle prior to schedule for information. And that council supports the recommendations made in the said report and authorize the early surplus of the 2016 Chevrolet Equinox and the release of a tender for a hybrid SUV in January 2025 to replace the noted vehicle.
All in favor? That's carried. Okay, thank you very much, sir. The next item on the list is the proposed council meeting schedule. Did anyone have any issues with the meeting schedules as outlined? Seeing none. Oh, sorry, Councillor Barry. You're on mute. Lisa, you're on mute.
Sorry, yeah, not so much the meeting schedules, but just in the last couple of days, I've had a conflict come up in regards to the budget deliberations. And I'm wondering if there's any possibility, I have an opportunity for a contract that entire week. And with the exception of the Thursday, so the 20th, I don't need off, but I'm wondering if the budget deliberations could be pushed forward a week or back a week, just not running the same week as the week of the February 18th.
I was going to add that to the discussion, but thank you for bringing that up. I had spoken with our CAO about it, and you know what might work the best. And I'm wondering, I was looking at my schedule. Are we looking at the 13th, 14th? As opposed to now I'm not suggesting that we change the regular meeting date, but I am suggesting that we change the budget meetings from, I think it was the 17th, 18th to the 13th, 12th, 13th, 14th.
It was the 18th, 19th, so that was the Tuesday, Wednesday, and it would be moved to the 13th, 14th, which is the
Thursday, Friday.
Is there any way it could be moved the other way?
Well, I mean, I'm a little
Sorry,
bit, I'm a little bit concerned that we're already a little bit late in our budget deliberations, and I'd rather move it to an earlier date than a later date. Do you have a conflict on those dates as well?
Unfortunately, I have been offered a contract the 10th of February until the 22nd or the 21st of February. If it can't be moved, I can withdraw the contract.
It's really important to me that, you know, our budget discussions are the most important discussions that we have in the entire year. Not that other matters aren't equally important, but I mean, that's the foundation of the work that we do for the following year, and I would like us all to be present. I hate to have to see you cancel a contract, but I'm concerned about delaying the discussions further. Comments from other members of council, like are there other conflicts? Deputy Mayor Dayu.
I suppose a question for the mayor and the CAO. I wonder when we have our projects and priorities meeting, if we will be able to determine at that point how much negotiation there might be on certain things. And it could be that if the budget appears to be fairly straightforward, that by delaying it a week, we're not pushing off some challenging conversations. You know, if we feel fairly sure and secure about what we're seeing in projects and priorities. I'm just wondering if that's a gauge of that we might rely on to enable putting it back a bit.
I'm just not sure that discussion, I mean, projects and priorities do set the direction for the major projects that we want to do, but it doesn't address things that are out of our control. That, when you need more time after projects and priorities to put the whole picture together and see where we're at as far as a levy increase. And so I'm not sure that that's going to have an impact on it. Thoughts from other members of council, like do you have availability issues for any of the proposed dates that are? Sorry, I don't like the way my anyway, sorry. I went to looking for February and up comes April. So you're saying that you would be available for the 18th, 19th?
Sorry, is that directed at me?
Yes.
No, my request is that it could be considered for the week of February the 24th, but if that's not a possibility, I won't take the contract.
Okay, what's council's availability on those dates? Deputy Mayor Dayu.
I'm available on those dates.
Madam CAO.
So we have some conflicts on the 25th, because again, staff have, built schedules around the dates that were approved by council. The 25th is fully booked in this room. So the Monday, the 24th would be available. The 26th is, I believe, county council, is that right?
Yeah,
And again, we're getting, later in the year, so
and it's helpful to have the 2 days back to back.
together. Mhm.
And what's your thoughts?
Is the 25th the environment and stewardship and the green burial booking?
Well, that would be a question for me to ask you.
I'm just wondering when Angie says the room is booked, if that is the date in question, because if that's the case, we could potentially meet on the 24th and the 25th.
There is a environment committee meeting there, and actually this room is double booked. So we'd have to look at that, but no, it's to do with records management. We have scheduled our consultant isn't the right word, but we've booked time with them, and we have to use that room for that purpose, and it's all day. So the only other available days would be the 27th and 28th, and you and I had talked about that earlier, Mayor, and again, it's end of the month.
Any other thoughts on, personally, my apologies to you, because I know that it creates a challenge for you, but I prefer, given some of the challenges that we're hearing, and that we don't want the meetings to be too late, that we stick with the schedule as outlined, and hope that you can join us. I don't want to set a meeting that you can't be at. I think we all need to be at our budget meetings. Councillor Richards.
What are the chances of doing it any earlier than February 10th? I think that puts a lot on us, but what are the chances?
It does definitely tighten our timeline from a staff perspective. If you want to book a time, and we'll have to look at the calendar a little closer here, the week before that, council probably could do that if the treasurer can make it happen. I won't be here. I've already got
Well,
a trip to Costa Rica booked, so.
what?
But we can,
So you're gonna be gone from what dates?
from the 25th of January, I'm gone until the 8th of February. First time in my career, I'm taking 2 weeks in a row.
Well, it's well deserved. So there is, Counselor Barry, no opportunity for you to change the dates with the college?
No, that's okay.
Where do we, we're still sort of the only other opportunity is the 27th and the 28th, which you think is too late.
That's entirely up to council, whatever it's council's wish, whatever, we can make it happen.
Counselor Deputy Mayor Dayu has said she's available. Counselor Shortreed,
I'm okay for all the dates.
Counselor Richards. Okay, then I guess we're landing on the 27th and the 28th. And our regular council meeting will hold on its regular day.
Thank you.
So could I have a mover and a seconder then to revise those dates? Deputy Mayor Dayu, seconder. Counselor Shortreed.
Thank you.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Dayu, seconded by Council Shortreed. Be it resolved, Council receives report CO 2524 regarding the 2025 council meeting schedule for information. And council concurs with the recommendations made in said report, sets the 2025 regular council meeting dates as follows: January 16th, February 6th and 20th, March 6th and 20th, April 3rd and 17th, May 1st and 15th, June 19th, July 17th, August 14th, September 4th and 18th, October 2nd and 16th, November 6th and 20th, and December 11th. And further, the council reschedule its budget deliberations meetings from February 18th and 19th to February 27th and 28th.
All in favor? That's carried.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We're just pleased that you're going to be able to be with us.
Thank you.
Well, that was an interesting discussion. Sorry for being slightly discombobulated. Next on the agenda is the Stanhope Museum update. And is there any comment from members of council on the museum meeting? Councillor Barry.
Not so much on this agenda, but on this meeting note, I just want it to be noted that in our on Monday, previous meeting, it was brought to attention that Ann Hewitt, who has been an active member on the committee, is stepping down from doing our garden contract. And I just wanted to recognize and have staff and council recognize that for 3 years, sort of during COVID and everything, she really brought the garden back to life. And I just wanted to acknowledge all the hard work that she's done.
Well, I think we'd like to send a letter of thanks to her for that hard work. It's much appreciated. And is there a subsequent request coming from that?
There will be a request for consideration of a paid contract if we're unsuccessful in finding a volunteer. There is talks of reaching out to a couple of different organizations, but we haven't secured someone as of yet. So that will be coming forward in their budget, and I was going to raise that during project and priorities.
Okay. Well, we'll look forward to hearing more about that at the appropriate time. Any other questions or comments about the museum meeting? Deputy Mayor Dayu?
I think it's lovely to see that the 2024 visitor attendance increased for the 3rd year in a row, as did donations. And, you know, if the proof is in the pudding, it looks like the committee's doing a great job in keeping the spirit of the museum going and going from strength to strength.
Well, thank you for that. Yep, that's, you know, the museum committee has been longstanding and strong and does lots of good work. So comments are appreciated. Could I have a mover and a seconder, Madam Clerk?
There's just a recommendation from the committee in there that council, the committee's recommending that council put the donation from the Friends of the Stanhope Museum into a new Stanhope Museum Special Project Reserve.
Thoughts on that? Either Counselor Barry or that, so that was a meeting that I think only yourself was at, Counselor Barry. Was there anything specific, or they just wanted to tuck that away in case there was a special project that came up?
Yeah, I don't think there's been anything identified specifically, but I just think that they want to, you know, separate that and have that in the reserve.
Any questions or concerns about that? Did you have a question, Deputy Mayor Dayu?
Where would it normally go if not to this new reserve? Where would those donations typically go?
Madam CAO?
To the regular reserve for the museum.
Okay, could I have a mover and a seconder then that we establish a special projects reserve with that funding? Councilors Short Reed and Richards?
Moved by Counselor Short Reed, seconded by Counselor Richards. Be it resolved, council received the October 21st, 2024 Stanhope Museum Committee meeting minutes for information, and council approves the transfer of the $5,222.09 donation from the Friends of the Stanhope Museum to a new Stanhope Museum Special Projects Reserve, and the council expresses its sincere appreciation to Ann Hewitt for her volunteer works on the museum gardens.
All in favor? That's carried. And I look forward to hearing about special projects. Next on the agenda is a question on whether we want to consider any delegations at the Roma conference. Any comments or thoughts on that? Oh, sorry. This has been an interesting day for me. So we'll just step back a bit, and my apologies that the next item on the agenda is correspondence from from Wanda Mole or the Friends of St. Stephen's about how we will proceed with the church. And I think since the last time council has talked about this, we've determined that there are some extra costs associated with the transfer in doing a bit of I'm at a loss as to, it's like ground research to make sure literally that there are no bodies in the land that we're transferring. So there's a cost associated with that. There's a cost associated with the legal fees, and we had previously agreed to front the costs, and they would be recovered through the sale of the building. So we have new correspondence, and suggesting that there will be additional costs and looking for the same arrangement, basically. I have a little bit of concern because in previous discussions, we've talked about the fact that the land will be sold, the church land will be sold, but now correspondence is saying potential sale or will likely be sold, and I'm a little bit concerned about the municipality's position. I'm still very supportive of working and, and having a partnership on this project and protecting, the building and making it available for other uses going forward. I certainly don't want to see it abandoned or, falling into ruin. So we've entered into similar agreements in the past, and I guess the request is that we consider expanding the agreement that we've got. Is there anything you'd like to add to that, Madam CAO?
Not really add, just a recommendation for council to receive the correspondence. And as council is aware, there's a closed session today on the legal process around this, that council were receiving legal advice on. So that would be the recommendation.
Any comments or questions? So could I have a mover and a seconder then to receive the correspondence? Deputy Mayor Dayu. Councillor Barry, you wish to speak?
Yeah, just one of the comments in the correspondence, and maybe we'll be talking about this later, but it does say that there is a goal to ensure the church's heritage is recognized. Is there any more information on what exactly they're asking for? Are they asking for like an official designation, or is that it's continued to be recognized within the municipality?
I'm sorry, we can't take comments from the audience. No, there actually hasn't been anything specified about how that would be or could be achieved. But it is something that, that we can continue to have discussions about, just to, because there are some challenges associated with that. If the property goes up for sale, depending on who's buying it. Now, it does suggest in the correspondence that there are interested parties. So there may have been some discussions going on between whoever that might be and the Friends. But that's something that we'll have to determine, and one of the reasons why we might just receive the correspondence at this point in time, rather than make a definitive decision.
Okay.
So could I have a mover and a seconder to receive the correspondence? Councillor Sortreed, Councillor Richards. I just about made you the deputy mayor.
Moved by Councillor Short-Reed, second by Councillor Richards. Be it resolved, council receives correspondence from Wanda Mole, President of the Friends of St. Stephen's Church, for information, and council direct staff to investigate, request, and report back to council.
All in favor? That's carried. So now to request for delegations for the Roma conference. I know that there are several delegations that are being made by the county, but they're not necessarily associated with large issues that we might have. One is on issues with the Board of Education and the changes that they've made to busing routes and their regulations. Another one is a joint delegation with the City of Kawartha Lakes about basically it's about the Tenant Landlord Act and possible changes to that for City of Kawartha Lakes and Haliburton County tenants. Is there any thought or about the need for delegations that Algonquin Highlands itself might do? I might add that I am becoming somewhat disillusioned with the success of the delegation process at either AMO or Roma. Thoughts? Councillor Barry, and then Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Is there any appetite for a delegation in regards to Crown land use? And
We've made that delegation at our last conference, and there is activity. There's a working relationship now between the ministry and staff here. So I don't think that we should, there's been some success with that last delegation. And we can continue to push on them, without making another delegation. So I'm not sure, if it's timely to do that. I think we'd leave things as they are for now, as the status quo, and they do seem to be moving forward. The parcels have been identified, and we're working on a process. So I would say at this time, maybe no. Now, if we don't have any more success between now and AMO, I would want to approach it again. Any other thoughts? Councilor, I'm sorry, you had your hand up before. Go ahead.
No, I don't have any recommendations right now, but I just want to make clear, it's not because I have no concerns. One of the reasons.
We all have
Well,
concerns.
that's right. And, we've kind of banged the drum on Crown land in the past, and I'm glad to see that we're slowly starting to make some headway there. That's great. But, it still remains, it still remains a concern, but I think we've sort of exhausted our deputations at the moment on that. And the other big elephant that keeps coming up everywhere we turn is how municipalities are being financed these days. It seems like no matter which direction you look in, and so long as you scratch the surface of a problem, there's an antiquated way that the municipality is receiving funding from the province on this, that, or the other. But again, I think that's being covered fairly well by AMO. There are almost class actions out there about that sort of thing. So I don't think it's worthwhile to put a singular deputation in or a delegation in. But that's not to say it's not a major issue. I just think it's being covered somewhere else.
It is a major issue, and it is something that is, that's being covered by excuse me, by AMO, and the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus are also putting forward a strong argument, and, we'll hear more about that at the county level. I don't see there being a benefit from us doing it. We just wouldn't have any impact. Would be like just pat on the head and thanks very much for your delegation. So is there any need for, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And it isn't a recommendation. I just want to make council aware as well about the increased OPP costs. That would have been a recommendation for a delegation, but I know that through the county CAO that the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus is also on that. So, I mean, Algonquin Highlands alone has a 20% increase. So, but that's in good hands. So
Yeah, the Wardens Caucus is definitely putting forward a motion. I'm pleased to say that was one of the things that I raised at our last meeting. And while there didn't seem to be an awful lot of uptake at the meeting itself, they've since then gone forward, kind of full on. So I think that that's the best place for that to be handled. Because we're certainly not the only municipality that's got concerns about that. So is there need? Sorry, Lisa. I'm sorry, Councillor Barry.
Yeah. The other two things that are maybe top of mind, and I don't know if they would involve Algonquin Highlands or more the county, but continued funding towards housing. And then the other thing would be what is happening with MPAC? Like I'm at a loss for we've been told, I think, for 3 or 4 years or longer that there would be an update in MPAC assessments, and it's just not happening. So I don't know if it's worth raising those today.
I would suggest no, not coming from us. I think those are also two items that I'm not sure what we would put forward as far as housing is concerned, that might be something that would come from the county, that would be more involved in that. As far as MPAC, I doubt very much whether we would get any definitive response on that at all. I see that as being an election issue that we would have absolutely no impact on. Not that they aren't like extremely critical issues to be dealt with, but it just seems like there's a political rationale for not taking action, particularly with the MPAC and when they're going to do or release reassessments. Any other thoughts? Do we need a resolution for that or no?
Just have one drafted to receive.
Okay, could I have a mover and a seconder then to receive the report? Councillor Shortreed and Richards.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, second by Councillor Richards. Be it resolved, Council receives correspondence from Roma regarding a request for delegation at the conference for information.
All in favor? That's carried. Next is a report on a proposed change in the site layout for the St. Stephen's Cemetery. And I believe both Sarah and Adam would speak to this issue. Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
Good morning.
Who wants to go first?
I will.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. So just to take us back to July, I brought forward a draft revision to our bylaw, and we had approved it, but we had met with the committee and they wanted to recommend some further changes. And council had asked if I could inquire with the BAO to see if we needed to start our process all over again as far as advertising. There are some legislative requirements if we're going to amend our bylaw. So I inquired with the BAO and we still meet, even though we want to change it, we still meet the requirement. We fulfill the requirement of making any changes. So even with a further amendment today, we can still submit our bylaw and we have fulfilled that requirement. One of the things that the BAO had talked about while we were speaking is there was one requirement that they wanted us to consider. And that was, there is legislation to be 4.57 meters away from any building, a grave site. And they asked us to apply that to lot lines. So the legislation is very specific to building, but because they wanted us to consider it to lot lines, it would, if we don't, it would impact the property to the north and the east. So we have Adam and I with our project manager, Brian, we took a look at the layout and we were able to come up with a new layout, which I think was very similar to one of the ones that was suggested back when we were considering the layout for the green burial. And that was to put all the plots together and removing the rows. And so this does create, by removing the rows, we are able to get almost the same plot amount by adhering to that 15-meter setback from the lot line. So that is up for council's consideration for the layout. Mayor, did you want me to go through each section or do you want to stop for comments at the questions or comments?
When you say removing the road, like it wasn't clear to me, even on this drawing, exactly what you meant by that, or the location. Is it part of the laneway that runs between the regular part of the cemetery and the green burial cemetery?
If I may, our previous approved layout had 2 rows of plots and then a little driveway in between, like a little roadway between, and then 2 rows of plots and a roadway and 2 rows of plots.
Oh, okay.
So we
sorry.
removed those roadways, and essentially Public Works will utilize unoccupied plots to do direct burials.
Okay, I always thought of that in terms of pathways between the plots as
That's
opposed to
essentially
the
what that
road,
is,
and I
yes.
thought, okay, road?
Yeah.
Because we're gonna need the road
Yeah.
or the
Yes,
laneway.
road will stay intact on the layout.
Questions from council? Councillor Barry and then Deputy Mayor Dayu.
I can support that. I just want, and I'm sure the answer is yes, but when we get to the last row of plots, with the setback, there would still be enough room for maintenance to open plots and that.
I'm seeing nodding heads.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is the nice thing about the 15. So that 15-meter setback will also apply to the last row. So there is
Room.
significant space there for our equipment. Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Yeah, I fully support the recommendation. I think we struggled in the past with trying to identify what sort of access we would need and when and who would go in there and what the naturalized space would look like. And now that all of those questions are figured out, it makes perfect sense to revert to this, especially given the new regulations coming from the BAO. So I think it's a great idea.
Any other comment or question? Okay, then I guess we're looking for a mover and a seconder to approve the recommendation and the new site plan drawing. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
There's a couple, sorry, I apologize, Mayor. There's a couple other things through the report that we've put together. So we can go through each one if you want, or I can just go through them all and open for comment, but we do.
Go through them all and then
Go
we'll.
through them all. Okay. So initially when we drafted our bylaw, we had that we were going to naturally allow the space. Given the information we were provided from the master gardeners and what was in our bylaw, we needed to do some amendments. So what we heard from the master gardeners and support from council is that we want maintenance to continue to cut the grass to control invasive species. So we knew right away that was going to require a small amendment to our revised bylaw. So we've just put in there that maintenance, we will cut the grass and it'll be business as usual. And then the two sections that needed clarification, I have suggested, staff have suggested amendments. So I've put in my report what it currently states and what I would recommend we put into the bylaw. The recommendations I've put in allow a little bit more broad and allow council to be able to make the decision going forward on what the ground cover is or any planting plans or anything like that. And then just lastly, that we ask council request authorization for staff to work collaboratively with the master gardeners to come up with a plan on how we can increment and execute the plan.
That would have been my one main question, given that, what we basically approved from the master gardeners at our last meeting, that there is some changes that come along with that. We, at some point in time, the Green Burial Committee will be dissolved, and it would be my recommendation that we work directly through the master gardeners going forward. So absolutely, I don't see any issue with that. Any questions or comments from council on that portion of the recommendation? Deputy Mayor Dayoud?
I wonder if for clarity, council might consider in the final amendment, which is for section 8.12, you've written the recommendation for the amendment would be maintenance of the site. Regular maintenance will be carried out on the green/natural burial site to manage the growth of non-native species and support the health of native species. Once the site or section is established, the site will be left to naturally evolve. And I wonder if we might add, once the site or section is established as per the naturalization plan, just to put in there the fact that we're not just leaving it to be created on its own account by any native species that just so happen to pop in there, but as per the plan that we're working on with the master gardeners. Might not be helpful, but
I don't know if it's necessary, but thoughts from other members of council? Do you see that as something that's necessary or not? Councillor Barry?
I can see the definition of naturalization versus what naturally occurs. I can see there being a possible desire or need to have that language in there, just so it does indicate that it isn't just what happens, it's more an intent statement. So I don't know.
I see Sarah has her hand up, so
may,
comments,
through you.
please.
My intent of using once the site or section is established, that is up to council. And so right now we don't have a full plan on how we're going to fully execute it with all the details. I tried to keep it a little bit more broad. And so when using the language, once the site or section is established, that's interpretive to council. And so I think council would set that in an approved plan as staff works with the master gardeners. And then once we're, from the master gardeners, what I gathered is at some point the planting will stop and the growth will happen. And that's what I meant by that language.
That works for me. Any other comment from other members of council? So Councillor Short-Reed.
I agree with keeping it broad. That way you have room to manipulate it.
So maybe you could read what you have for, I'm sorry, did that cover all the recommendations that you were going to make? What have we got for a resolution?
Resolution is drafted in accordance with the recommendation in the report with the addition of council approving the site plan in order to be submitted to the BAO for approval.
Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder then for the resolution? Councillors Richards and Short-Reed.
Moved by Counselor Richards, second by Counselor Short-Reed. Be it resolved, council receives report DC 524 regarding the site plan for a green burial section at St. Stephen's Cemetery for information. And council concurs with the recommendations made in the said report and directs staff to make the necessary changes to the bylaw and submit it to the Bereavement Authority of Ontario. And the council approves the site plan design for the green burial section and directs staff to submit it to the Bereavement Authority of Ontario for review and approval. And further, council authorize staff to work directly with the Master Gardeners of Halliburton to bring back a plan for council's consideration.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
So next up is Public Works, and we just happen to have Mr. Thorne here to help us with that. Your monthly activity report. Any
Thank you.
highlights?
Any highlights for the monthly report? Basically, we're just continued moving into the winter schedule. Excuse me. We did receive a little bit of snow today, which was nice and exciting to see, but happy to see it's also melting away just as quick. So no, basically that all of our equipment is up and ready to go for winter. The final stages of the excuse me. The final stages of the museum roof repair in Dorset, excuse me, has been completed. They will be there tomorrow, just finishing up the last little bit. Our winter sand that was approved at the last council, they're getting organized on that this week. And then our tree clearing for winter sand for next year is almost completed. I was there this morning just to check in on it. So far, everything's moving forward well. We did accept two probationary period staff members into full-time now. Our Public Works admin assistant fulfilled her probation period, and that was successful. And our interim Public Works supervisor was moved into his role as a Public Works supervisor. So it was exciting to be able to have that completed this month. And so far, everything is moving forward.
Well, congratulations to them both. It's good to see that they're being successful. And comments or questions for on the report? Can I have a mover and a seconder then to receive it? Councilors Berry and Richards.
Moved by Counselor Berry, second by Counselor Richards. Be it resolved, council receives Public Works Report PW 3624 regarding monthly activities for information.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Next up, Park Recreation and Trails. And your first item is the fee schedule.
Yes, thank you. And good morning, Mayor and Council. So through you, Mayor, there is a 3% inflation-related increase on all fee categories. The one thing I would like to highlight to Council is under the Dorset Recreation Center membership fees. We've had until now a senior rate age for memberships of 55. And I do bring for council's consideration changing that to 60. It's in line with similar services elsewhere, but also within our own department, creating some consistencies with when we offer senior rates within the trails aspects for camping and ski trail passes, etc. Outside of that, looking for comment and consideration.
Does that create any gaps for going from 55 to 60 with people who have already acquired or paid fees but aren't 60 yet?
It would, and what I would propose in that case is their existing membership would run its course, and if they renewed, they'd if they're under 60, they'd be under the new category.
Okay. Questions or comments on the proposed fee schedule? Councilor Richards.
I I know we talked previously about looking at different rates for non-taxpayers versus taxpayers in both the water trails and the rec center. Are we still looking to do that?
Yes, and through you, Mayor, absolutely. And unfortunately, I hadn't been able to pull some discussions and considerations together in time for this fees update. So still looking to go through that process and have that discussion with council. And what I'm proposing is we move forward with this, what I'd consider a regular fees update. And council will see that consideration listed as a project and priority in that meeting for next year. And the main consideration being is there's two different software systems and each one has different considerations as to how we might implement such a fee. I've had some discussions with our recreation related software provider to understand how that works, and that will ultimately influence some of the decisions that we have to make here at this table on how we go about making those fees. This coming Friday, I have that discussion happening with our service provider for our campsites and ski trails. My hope is to have a consistent process between the two. But once I have that information, I can then make some decisions about how that might look based on the restraints of the software, and then bring some discussions back to council about what might need to be decided on at that time, including the rates.
Other questions or concerns? Hearing none, then could I have a mover and a seconder to approve the proposed fee schedule for Parks, Rec, and Trails? Deputy Mayor Dayu, Councillor Richards.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Dayu, seconded by Council Richards. Be it resolved, Council receives the proposed 2025 Parks, Recreation, and Trails service fees for information, and Council concurs with the recommended fees and directs they be included in the 2025 comprehensive fees and charges bylaw and brought forward at the December 12th regular council meeting.
All in favor? That's carried. The next item is correspondence that we received from Mr. Mills regarding the condition of or action on the log chute. Did you have any comment that you wanted to make on that?
No, well, I should just say thank you to Mr. Mills for his correspondence on this. He had asked that this be brought to the attention of council, so this is the email that we received. And looking for comment from council on the matter. There has been no progress or change in any timelines or movement towards a replacement of a log chute as of yet.
This is something that has recently come under discussion, from a number of areas. Past Mayor Moffat, myself, and Councillor Richards recently went and viewed the site. The log chute is becoming more and more damaged, and I'll be surprised if, after high water next spring, any of it remains. Another factor is that it would appear that within the next year or two, the Trent Severn will be doing work on the dam, and it would be, in my estimation, this is a really important piece of infrastructure. It's extremely popular. I would like to see it repaired, replaced, and it's something that we should be discussing about at projects and priorities at the very minimum about the engineering aspect of it, because it will need to be engineered. And you can see that there's definitely some damage on the dam. Some work will need to be done there, and I want us to be ready to do anything should there be work done on the dam, that we kind of be shovel ready, although I don't know that shovels would be involved. Thoughts from council? Deputy Mayor Dayu?
In previous years, our hands have been tied on this project for a couple of reasons. I think one, we were waiting for work from the Trent Severn system, and then there was another matter, I believe, with respect to insurance, and I believe that in fact was tied to the Trent Severn project that had to happen before, if memory serves. And so I just wonder where, where we are on any of that. Might that be resolved before the log chute washes away? Because it isn't by any dearth of interest on the part of council for the last many years. I think we've not been able to move forward because of those two problems.
Madam CAO?
Definitely the first one is correct. We are waiting on the repairs to the dam. The issue of insurance was resolved. Council, it is a number of years ago now, so but we did come to a settlement with the insurance company, and we are in receipt of that, and that is being held for the time when it comes.
However, I would say that I'm not sure that the insurance issue has been resolved, because I don't think that they're interested in insuring the log chute going forward. Am I mistaken on that or not?
A little bit, if I may. It definitely will need to be engineered in order to be an insured structure.
Okay,
Mhm.
so that's Hitch. I had understood that they had just basically said they weren't interested in going forward with insurance. So, but even if that was a challenge with our existing insurance company, that's not to say that we couldn't investigate alternate insurers. And I'm not sure what else. I see a hand up, Mr. Carton.
I was going to ask the exact same question that you just asked the CAO, Mayor, about the insurance. So that did answer it.
So at this point in time, all I'm suggesting is that we put this into our list of things to discuss during projects and priorities. I'm hoping that we can set aside funding for engineering. And as to funding, repairs or the actual reconstruction of the log chute, that's another matter indeed. We'll have a better idea once some engineering has been done about what updated costs. I'm quite sure it'll be more than previous estimates that we've heard, but probably far more than we want to hear. Whether we need to enter into some fundraising opportunities or to research funding that might be available through, different ministries that we might be able to access. Those are things that we need to be investigating, I would say fairly soon. Deputy Mayor Dayu.
I wonder if we could find out, if we don't already know, what the implications of engineering it would be in terms of its historical heritage appearance. Would engineering it radically change the methodology that was used in the past that we tried to recreate in 2005? And would that sort of defeat the purpose? And my very sincere hope would be that it isn't, but it would be a good question to have answered if we don't have it already.
Angie.
And I don't have the file in front of me, and so I'll try and bring it out of my brain. I believe when we were going through the process with the insurance company, there were engineered drawings produced that were acceptable to the insurance company. It will look very different from what I remember.
It'd be nice to pull that back up and have a look at it. It would seem to me that there would have to be, there would definitely need to be steel involved in, it couldn't just be a timber, from what my understanding is, it can't just be a timber structure. Whether that could be done in a way that would kind of preserve the initial look of the log frame, that's something that we would have to investigate. Because you'd want it to look as close as you could to its historical look. Go ahead.
So then when we talk about considering engineering costs at projects and priorities, we're talking about asking for submissions on what it could look like what the various options that we might consider with regards to it, so that we're not actually investing money into it until we're sure that what we might produce really does stand up to the historical heritage value of what we're trying to demonstrate at the site.
Go ahead. I wasn't actually completely clear on what you were saying. Sorry.
Yes, through you, Mayor. I'd like to, if with council's approval, I'd like to pull the file and just refresh my memory, because honestly, it's a little foggy. It's been a few years, so refresh my memory, bring that back, projects and priorities, just to define what it would look like.
See what it would look like and see then if we need to vote again. And saying that, you know, that we're looking to put out an RFP that would bring it as close as we possibly could to what we believe it should look like. So let's, we just add that to your list of things. Long list of things to look into. But I don't believe that we can let this go for too much longer. Meanwhile, I guess we need a mover and a seconder to receive the correspondence from Mr. Mills with thanks. Councillor Richards, Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Moved by Councillor Richards, second by Deputy Mayor Dayu. Be it resolved, council receives correspondence from Bob Mills with thanks regarding the log chute, and that council directs a discussion on the log chute be included in the projects and priorities 2025.
All in favor? That's carried. Next are the minutes of the November the 6th meeting of the Recreation Committee. I have to say, I am a little bit disappointed that when we had our discussion at our last meeting that although we hadn't received the minutes yet, that there was no mention of the motion that was made to not hold the tree lighting ceremonies. Thankfully, staff have done a great job in working out how we are going to be able to offer those 3 tree lighting ceremonies, which I'm very happy to and thankful for the work that's been done to make sure that they happen. So first, I guess we need to, unless there are any other comments from the members of council that are on the rec committee, anything that you wanted to add, Councillor Shortreed?
And I don't think any of the members really want to do this. We're just at the point that we only have 2 members of the public and 2 councillors on our committee, unfortunately. And just with other commitments for certain people, so on and so forth, we just couldn't make it work.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on or questions on the minutes? Could I have a mover and a seconder to receive them? Councillor Richards, Councillor Barry.
Moved by Councillor Richards, second by Councillor Barry. Be it resolved, council receives the November 6th, 2024 Recreation Committee meeting minutes for information.
All in favor? The next item is the discussion about the rec committee, and I'm not proposing that we get into a long, lengthy discussion today about how we're going to move forward, but I would like to put that again on a subsequent agenda to look at thoughts and how we will proceed or how we could proceed and come to some determination there. I know that at the last meeting, I believe I thought we should leave the committee in place to until Snowball. Having had discussions with staff, I believe that staff can, with the help of normal volunteers for Snowball, can make Snowball happen without counting on the committee to go ahead. So I'm proposing that at this point in time, we dissolve the Recreation Committee, effective immediately, and offer thanks to the members, to those who signed up to the committee, and particularly those who have been, very active, that we send letters of thanks and notification that the committee is dissolved for now until we decide how we're going to move forward. And I sincerely regret having to say that, but there have been some challenges, and the reality is that the committee is not functioning as we hoped it would. Any comments or thoughts? So could I have a mover and a seconder then to approve dissolving the committee? Councillor, Deputy Mayor Dayu, sorry. Councillor Richards. I might add, before the resolution is read, that that does not necessarily dissolve the committee, the councillors responsible for recreation to take an active part in discussions going forward. Deputy Mayor Dayu?
I appreciate that you would like to bring this forward at another meeting to discuss the ways forward, but I wonder if we might have just a quick minute now to discuss how we could engage folk in our 3 geographical areas in advance of that conversation to find out how they might enjoy being re-engaged or what sort of methodology could work for them or committee structure or whatever it might be.
I believe we need to have that discussion ourselves first and just absolutely land on the direction that we want to take, because we've talked about some ideas, but I'd rather have one more fulsome discussion. There's a lot on our agenda that we've got to cover today, before we go out to outside parties and see what their thoughts are. And I'm not saying that that's not a good idea. I think that we definitely need to do that. I'd like us to have another discussion first. Madam CAO.
And that will also give staff the opportunity to maybe put some ideas together to bring forward to that discussion for council.
So if you would read the resolution.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Dayu, second by Councillor Richards. Be it resolved that council dissolves the Recreation Committee effective immediately and that council thanks the members for their participation on the committee.
All in favor? That's carried. Next up is environmental business. Thank you, sir. Much
Thank you, Mayor and
appreciated.
Council. Have a good day.
Good morning.
Good morning. Here with me for a quick second.
So first up is your monthly activity report. Any highlights you would like to bring us on that?
I would just, it was exciting to move forward with our bin roll-off lid replacement program. So we had the supplier actually had one of their chief staff come in and work with our public works staff to put the first model together and assemble it and install it. So we have that in place now and it's been working great, and 2 more ready to go. They'll probably be actually installed on the bins in the spring. So they've been assembled, but we're just waiting. It's gotten a bit cold for doing the amount of installation work, and they're not, they're needed for the summer activity, busier season. So we will get those. So that was nice to see that that underway. And my thanks to public works staff. They I think we had at one time about 6 people helping out in different ways, and it was really appreciated that they could pull together and bring all the resources to get that project completed. And I think I had mentioned it at our last meeting, but I provided the statistics for the hazardous waste event that was at Maple Lake in October. A very successful event. It was quite a busy day, and we had a good number of people from outside Algonquin Highlands attend the event as well, and a good amount of material received. So.
And we will have a bit of a discussion about that. That's under the next item. Are there any questions or comments on the monthly activity report? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder then to receive it? Councillor Shortreed, Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, seconded by Deputy Mayor Dayu. Be it resolved, council receives environmental report EB 3224 regarding monthly activities for information.
All in favor? That's carried. So next is the survey results from the Hazardous Waste Day. Very interesting results. It made me think of Councillor Richards quite a bit because you've also always made comments that you'd like to see the costs for waste management reduced, and any suggestions that we got from this survey suggested additions to the service. Anyway, just one of those things. I'm looking for thoughts from you on the results of the survey.
I would say nothing surprising in the survey. And it's expected, it would be wonderful if we could have a permanent year-round site, or even a permanent site for the summer, or permanent collection of different, some of the more common materials. There are some challenges with that, as council is probably aware, and we can, I'd welcome further discussion if that's something council would like to look at. There were, a good proportion of people who were using other resources to manage their hazardous waste, which is great to see, but it does identify that, that we may not be providing the services to meet everybody's needs here in the township. Felt there was a really good knowledge of people said they had a good knowledge of the risks and reasons that proper disposal was needed, and felt that they had a good understanding of what hazardous wastes were. So the education side of it, more about, certainly there were some areas where I identified that providing more information, or trying to reach more people to provide them information about when events can happen and what resources are available to dispose of waste, maybe something to look at. I would say there wasn't enough data collected. There were just 3 businesses that responded, so not really enough data there to make any comment about the business side of things. So I think that's maybe that, businesses, and it was identified as a household survey, so that was expected that there wouldn't be necessarily a lot of responses there, but we appreciate the ones that we did get. A couple of folks who were interested in evening or weekday hours or events. A challenge that might be there is to look at not a lot. So is there enough to warrant something like that? And so again, something for council consideration, and as Mayor, as you illustrated, more was the general consensus across the board.
Definitely. One of the things that I would ask for the purposes of projects and priorities is that we maybe get some idea about what it might cost to have a permanent or semi-permanent, like say, during the summer season, the primary season, like late spring, summer, and early fall, to have some kind of permanent spot, what the implications of that would be, what it might cost us. At least maybe at one primary location, if not all 3 of them. It seemed obvious to me that we need to nix the Thanksgiving weekend as being an optimum. There's quite a few comments about that. Our thinking, I know initially was that was a great time because people are cleaning up and getting ready to close down for the season and might want to use that. But I think there were enough comments there about that. As well as investigating what the cost might be for having at least one hazardous waste day on weekends. It is obvious from the results of the survey that although there are people who feel they're knowledgeable, there are people who just don't follow up on the information that we make available to them. They don't, they don't understand, exactly what it is they're supposed to put into hazardous waste, or when those days are happening. People just don't seem to keep up, but they're more than willing to make comment after the fact. Anyway, looking for comments from council. Councillor Richards.
I'm really not surprised at all by the results of this survey. It just spoke exactly what I already thought. So that's good. I think, what the biggest reality here is that yes, everyone wants more, and there's just no way we can give everyone those number of days. The cost is just astronomical to do so. Unless we were able to establish a permanent everyday service, which I think is quite considerable and you'd have to do a lot of work to change with the MOE to allow us to do that. And so the reality is to add more hazardous waste days, even the ones that we have, is substantially cost prohibitive. I cannot get out of my mind how much one vehicle costs at Oxtongue to accept hazardous waste. For many taxpayers, that's half of their annual taxes. That's ridiculous. And I think the number of people that would say they want more, being aware of how much it costs, would definitely shy away. What I do find as a result of the survey that we need to do some work on is educating people in what alternatives that they have. The fact that there are businesses that will take their batteries at no cost to them. There are places that will take used oil at no cost to them. Some do charge a fee.
But we're not going to start
Diverting-
promoting businesses.
Diverting away from our responsibility on hazardous waste collection to it being properly disposed of by places that it can be disposed of properly is probably the more responsible choice for our council to make, because we cannot afford what it costs and we're not going to be able to afford it.
Well, that's well received. Not, it's your determination and what we can or cannot do. I'm not suggesting, nor, did any of us, I think, suggest that we have more hazardous waste days, but that we look at when we have them. And look at the possibility of something that's, a more permanent spot. It'd be nice to know what the costs associated with that are, and if there would, ultimately be any savings in doing that. I definitely agree with you about, education, trying to do as much as we can. I mean, people, one of the things that surprised me is I think that we put out a certain amount of information or good amount of information about alternate locations across the county. And one of the suggestions was that we have alternate locations across the county. Well, I mean, it just shows that people don't pay attention no matter how much education you put out there or where you put it. They're not receiving it. But, I mean, as far as having additional days and, expanding the service beyond, trying to see how a permanent location would go, you're right, we can't afford to go much further with it.
If I may, there is a proposal which I'd be happy to bring forward to council. It sounds like there's interest. A model that's used in other smaller communities is what they call a mobile event or mobile service. So that's usually a trailer, it's a trailer that gets left on site for a couple of weeks or a month, and then moved to another site. And then, each time the trailer, is emptied. And there has been a bit of discussion in the waste group, whether that might be something, countywide, a shared resource that's possible. So I would be happy to, bring that forward. I saw a presentation from another municipality where they were talking about it, and it was quite interesting. So I just asked them a couple of questions, and it seems like it could be viable. There are some challenges, as with most things, but I'd be happy to bring that forward if there's interest.
Well, I think we'd definitely be interested in seeing that. Deputy Mayor Dayu, and did you have a comment you wanted to make? Well, I've already acknowledged you, and then we'll go to Councillor Berry.
Great. Yeah, no, that's very much where my imagination was going, not having the, the information of the model that's just been referenced, but the idea of having like a hazardous waste month, if it were possible, where everyone knew that so long as they came at some point during that month, there would be a receptacle for them to take, or something along those lines. So it's really, really encouraging to hear that other municipalities of around our size have figured out a system that's worked for them. And I'd be really grateful to see what you could bring forward on that, for sure.
Councillor Berry.
Yeah, I'm interested in hearing more about the mobile unit. I have a question here, which is kind of, is there an opportunity for a collection area or a longer term thing? So this sort of dovetails into that. One of the questions I had is, it seems that people are missing the, you know, the social media posts, the tax bill information, and all of the web stuff that we're doing. And I'm wondering, has there been a concerted effort in just simple signage at the landfills of where they're happening? I'm thinking, you know, every other week people are going to the landfill on the regular, like, I don't know if it's a countdown till the next hazardous waste day or something, but I'm just thinking a physical signage of this is coming. I don't know if that would help, but it just seems like the digital and the mail, sort of snail mail stuffs, it's just not meeting people's, you know, it's
Actually,
not
that
hitting
was,
their
I
radar.
believe that was one of the suggestions that came out of the survey, was that there be signage put at the landfill site and or that the attendants, you know, when we're getting close to a hazardous waste day that we've established, to let, you know, just, hey, just don't forget, we've got hazardous waste day coming up. And I mean, that's just another way of getting the word out. Go ahead, Melissa.
It falls in sort of the category of, you know, we advertise that events are throughout, you can go to events throughout the county and people suggest events throughout the county. So we do have posters at all of the sites with all of the dates as soon as they're set. Those go up on all of the buildings that are there. The attendants have flyers that they can hand out with all of the dates in the county. And before every event, you know, 2 weeks before, we make a real concerted effort to make those available to the public. And they are available, and the residents are encouraged, or the attendants are encouraged to provide them to any resident who's has any questions about hazardous waste or is bringing hazardous waste into the site. We've strayed away from just giving them to everybody because not everybody appreciates having the paper. So, you know, trying to distribute them where they're best.
But even just saying something, I mean, I know I personally go there, if not every week, every other week, and I've never had anybody say anything to me or make any indication about hazardous waste days.
Thank you.
Any other comments on the survey? Well, we look forward to hearing more information about what we might do to alleviate some of the concerns. We certainly are not going to be able to alleviate them all. Would that be available, or would information on what a temporary site might be available for projects and priorities? Would that be too much to expect?
No, for certain, I would anticipate maybe a bit more information that council be. So it's certainly I can bring forward a projects and priority and then bring a report to council for the next meeting, if that would be.
Go ahead.
That's what I would suggest, yes, because projects and priorities is certainly more high level.
Okay, great. Then could I have a mover and a seconder to receive the survey information? Deputy Mayor Dayu and Councillor Shortreed.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Dayu, second by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved, council receives environmental report AB 3324 regarding the household hazardous waste survey results for information.
All in favor? That's carried. I think now we will call for a 15-minute break. Thank you, Melissa. Much appreciated. Welcome back. The next item on the agenda is fire services. Good morning, Chief.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
First up are the monthly activities for September and October. Highlights that you'd like to give us?
Yes, definitely. I'll start with the month of September. The main highlight I want to speak about is our fire service took in the fly-in at the airport. I think it was a great opportunity for us to promote fire safety, public education, along with providing a safety aspect at that event. So look forward to them happening again next year and participating. The second item, I want to speak a bit about training, but I'd like to do it in the next month's review instead of repeating everything. So that's everything for this month of September.
Any questions on the report for September? Hearing none, can I have a mover and a seconder to receive it? Councillor Short-Reed and Richards.
Moved by Councillor Short-Reed, second by Councillor Richards, be it resolved, council receives fire services report FD 1724 regarding September monthly activities for information.
All in favor? That's carried. Monthly activities for October.
Yes, the month of October. The main highlight is we participated in a volunteer job fair in Dysart hosted by the Fleming University. And one of the things that we presented at this job fair is we now have a poster with QR code on it. So when the person looks at the poster, they use their phone, identifies the QR code, it goes directly to our Algonquin Highlands Fire Service website. So they can be familiar with what we provide as a service and pictures and that of what we do. In addition, it gives a direct link to the job application for that position. So again, we're starting to adopt newer technology. During the month of October, we did have Fire Prevention Week, and all three of our fire stations did have open houses take place for the communities during that time. And last thing I want to speak about is the training. You'll see with September and October, our training officer and our firefighter has been really, really busy doing updated training in that, and a large variety from low angle rescue to pump ops, extrication, and items like that. In addition, anything that the recruits do in their training each month, our training officer actually has our firefighters incorporate that in their weekly training, because that keeps them familiar with their past training and their skills up. And I'm happy to say that this weekend, our recruits will take their hazmat and they'll be complete to the recruit course and ready for provincial testing. So that's the highlights for October.
Questions or comments? Okay, a mover and a seconder to receive the October report. Councillor Short-Reed and Barry.
Moved by Councillor Short-Reed, seconded by Councillor Barry, be it resolved, council receives fire service report FD 1824 regarding October monthly activities submitted for information, and that council appoints Peter McTeague, firefighter for Station 80.
All in favor? That's carried. And next are some updates to our emergency response plan and terms of reference.
Yes, that's correct. Our last time that our actual emergency response plan was updated is in 2019. And we updated that along with the term of references for it. It's part of our requirement of the Emergency Management Civil Protection Act to keep it updated. So everything is highlighted, the changes in the plan. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Madam CAO.
I just want to note that there has been some input from the health unit on the plan, and they had just some minor recommended changes that are not included in this for council, but just because it was just received yesterday. So with council's approval, we could incorporate those small changes.
So it wouldn't need to come back to us? I'm just wondering if we should be deferring. Go ahead.
So under our things for that, the CEO has the authority to do minor changes. And it's word terminology that the health unit has brought forward and highlighted. And I will be meeting with Abby Tobacco next Wednesday. She's the health service representative. Very minor word changes, but the CEO does have the authority to accept them.
Okay. Any questions or comments on either the plan or the terms of reference. So I think that we've got partial approval under bylaws.
You just motion to
Receive the report. Okay, mover and a seconder to receive the report on changes. Councillors Richards and Short Read.
Moved by Councillor Richards, seconded by Councillor Short Read. Be it resolved, Council receives report FD 1924 regarding the updated emergency response plan and emergency management program committee terms of reference for information. And Council directs that a bylaw to adopt the updated plan and revised terms of reference be tabled for consideration.
All in favor? That's carried. So next is a request to waive fire invoice. Did you wish to speak to that?
Yes, I do, please. Through your worship, the Forest Fire Prevention Act provides a passing of a bylaw to regulate the setting of open air fires, which we have, where there's no burning from April 1st till October 31st. Under this situation, the fire took place April 9th. They were burning brush. They did admit to burning brush. Under our process, when a complaint comes in, it goes to our fire dispatch. They in turn dispatch our fire department. This particular case, they sent 7 firefighters respond to the call. We do pay each one of our firefighters a 2-hour minimum, so they were in violation of the bylaw. This is a fees for service to recoup our costs. And like I said, we don't want to burden the taxpayers of the township for our costs as incorporated by somebody not following our burn bylaws. So it's a recommendation of staff to deny the waiving of the fees.
Any questions or comments or concerns about that? Deputy Mayor Dayu?
I wonder if you could just talk us through, and you've done this before, so it's really more for public interest, but when a complaint comes through the dispatch that someone has a controlled burn, but they are burning, that's different from, oh, there's a wildfire out there, and yet you do send a full truck, and the folk needed to respond to that as if it were a burn that would require a much greater attention. Could you just talk us through that a little bit so it's a bit clearer for the public?
So when a person has concern with they consider a burning complaint or somebody burning illegally, it goes to our fire dispatch. When our fire dispatch receives the call, they'll page out our firefighters because we don't know who's available to respond. So whoever is available, they do respond, and we make our response normally with 1 truck, depending on the time of year. If it was during a fire ban, we would probably do a response or 2 or 3 trucks because that fire could escalate to something more. So then, as part of our cost recovery, we do have the bylaw allows us to charge for our services to responding to an illegal burn or burning outside the permitted times as laid out by the province. So this timing of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. from the 1st of April to the end of October is right across the province of Ontario. So everyone should be familiar with the burn regulations.
Any other questions or comments? Well, I mean, while I have some, sympathy for her, this lady's plea, I completely concur with your comment that that the taxpayer should not have to bear the burden of the cost of someone failing to meet their requirements. And so I would suggest that there be a motion that we deny the request to waive the fees. Councillor Barry?
Yeah, I support that it shouldn't be the burden of the taxpayer. I read the letter and I read the request to deny the letter, 2 or 3 times back and forth, and tried to it sounds like it was a 10-day difference and a new resident to the township. And I wonder, instead of waiving the fine, is there a way to reduce the fine as sort of meeting in the middle, that it was recognized that it was in contravention? However, I think by just removing the fine entirely isn't fair, but I think, is there any room for meeting halfway?
Go ahead. I was going to say it's a bit of a slippery slope.
It is, and councils had a request like this before and denied it. The cost is the cost. And so, you know, if you sort of meet halfway, it is going to then be on the rest of the taxpayers.
And setting a precedent.
And setting a precedent. You know, a new taxpayer still has a responsibility to know the rules. So I wouldn't recommend that we.
Well, particularly when it's province-wide regulations that are being followed. Deputy Mayor Dayu?
You know, this is one of those really tricky ones where you have, you know, absolute sympathy for someone who just didn't know the regulation, and it is her responsibility, but she didn't know. And I, you know, and I do get that in my heart. But I think my great fear is the chief and the other chiefs in the county have brought us the scientific reason for not allowing burns during the day. There is a reason why we do why we have these prohibitions, and it has largely to do with the increased rate of uncontrolled burns at those certain times of the day. And my fear, based on that slippery slope comment, is if people start to think, oh, well, if I do it once, it's going to be okay. I'm going to get a free pass on it, or I'll get a discounted rate, but at least I can get it done. Then we're actually increasing the risk to our township of having burns go out of control. And I don't think we can let that happen. I think the greater good has to prevail here. It is a riskier time of the day to burn, and that is why we have these rules in place, and we need to make sure that they're upheld.
Agreed. So just for information, do we have two resolutions? One to receive the correspondence and another to,
Yes, we
Deny the
want to
request.
receive correspondence.
okay, could I have a mover and a seconder then to receive the correspondence? Councilors Short, Reed, and Barry.
Moved by Councilor Shortly, second by Councilor Berry. Be it resolved, Council receives correspondence from Elena Millis regarding receipt of invoice fees for daytime burning without a permit for information.
All in favor? That's carried. And a mover and a seconder to deny the request to waive the fees. Councilor Short, Reed, Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Moved by Councilor Shortly, seconded by Deputy Mayor Dayu. Be it resolved, Council receives Fire Service Report FD 2024 regarding daytime burning without a permit, request for waiving invoice fees for information, and the council concurs with the recommendation made by the fire chief and denies the request made by Ms. Belize to have the invoice for fees waived.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much.
And I think because we have a closed session coming up in 2 minutes, that we don't want to cut short any report that's upcoming. So we'll invite you back after our closed session. So could I have a mover and a seconder to go into closed? Councillor Short, Reed, and Councillor Richards.
Moved by Councilor Shortly, second by Councilor Richards. Be it resolved that council adjourn an open session at 11 a.m. in order to proceed into closed session for the purpose of discussing the following. 1, personal matters about identifiable individuals, litigation affecting the municipality, and advice subject to solicitor-client privilege in accordance with section 239(2) B, E, and F of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended regarding legal matter updates. Advice subject to solicitor-client privilege in accordance with section 239(2) F of the Municipal Act as amended regarding legal advice regarding St. Stephen's Cemetery potential land disposition and labor relations or employee negotiations in accordance with section 239(2) D of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, changes to staff workload roles of specific employees and potential recruitment.
All in favor? That's carried. Welcome back to the open session. The next item on the agenda under finance is a proposed accounts payable automation. Welcome.
Afternoon, Mayor and Council. Okay, so we're here before you today to seek approval for the selection of a single source vendor for the acquisition and implementation of accounts payable automation software. Over the past 4 years, through the implementation of a new financial software, we've been able to automate several of our daily data entry processes, and they have created significant efficiencies, ensured us effective use of the software. This approach has helped streamline operations, reduce manual data entry, eliminated the need for additional staffing resources, ultimately improving efficiency and cost effectiveness. By doing this, staff have been able to focus on more in-depth analytical tasks within their roles, along with project-specific tasks. To give a few examples of these things, the first one is our payroll process. Prior to implementing into our new financial software, that process was heavy administratively. There were staff that filled out paperwork every day, some every other week, and then there were a lot of shifting of actually handing paper over to people. And that wasn't just for payroll, but for us also for equipment time. There were also things tied into that task, and we completely eliminated paperwork, and that process is completely digitized. So that was one of our wins. And the other one is, sorry. The other one was through our financial software. When we receive payments through bank accounts for taxes, those payments were manually entered every payment we received. With looking at that process, we were able to implement a script, and so we no longer have staff manually keying roll numbers and payment, which has improved in the taxes significantly as well. So through the development of the countywide digital transformation strategy, the group participated in a business process optimization workshop. And in that workshop, we identified that accounts payable across the board was another process that requires a lot of manual data entry. With minimal setup, we could automate it and yield us the highest return on indirect savings. So as staff continue to work to support the work within the strategic plan, this recommendation supports the strategic priority of service excellence by embracing new technologies that will improve customer service and increase efficiency and accessibility. Additionally, supporting the strategic goal of demonstrating leadership in minimizing the township and community environmental footprint by the significant reduction in the use of paper. How did we get here? So we have recently received the news that our financial software will come to end of life in a few years in 2029. Although, as part of the digital transformation strategy, investigations and research will start collaboratively for a replacement. While this is unfortunate news, it does create a great opportunity to continue our path of implementing efficiencies throughout the township and our processes. In the meantime, we would like the opportunity to continue to utilize our current software to its maximum extent with the minimal investment to yield our highest return of efficiency. In this recommendation, the vendor has provided us with a 2-year contract, and staff feel that this timing will align really well with the replacement of our software.
Okay, so I also wanted to give council a little bit of background on our current AP process. So currently our process takes probably about 2 days to complete, with multiple manual aspects to that, and also with it's very like hands-on in the fact that invoices are exchanged multiple times, where they come to finance, I print them off, they get over to the department heads, and they return back to finance. There's a lot of, moving components in that. And then with all of that, the information is then manually inputted into our financial software. So the technology that we're proposing
is able to integrate with our current financial software and essentially will do all of that process automatically. It will be able to scan the invoice and be able to pick up the relevant information and put that into the financial software that is then ready for posting. So like Sarah mentioned, we did look at indirect cost savings for this through a return of investment and found that using the software could indirectly save approximately $1,200 per month. That is time that can be reallocated to more in-depth analytical tasks that are actually intended to be for the deputy treasurer that currently lie with the treasurer. And then this will allow to ensure that there's a continuity of business by learning these additional tasks. The shift to the digital workflow will significantly improve efficiency by enhancing the township's ability to provide quality services to the public and improve resource allocation for strategic initiatives.
And additionally, when we calculated our potential indirect savings, we didn't put into the calculation the time it'll save our department heads as well. We focused heavily just on the department, on the deputy treasurer. So there will be significant time savings throughout our management team of passing paper invoices, or if they want to look back at an invoice, that can all be done right from their computer or their phone, and they'll be able to approve on the fly. They'll be able to look at an invoice for a project. It'll support them in many ways in planning for future as well. So I wanted to circle back on the how we're going to fund, and I have just suggested as part of our recommendation that when we received our modernization funding, we received, and council at the time set aside $15,000 for cemetery software modernization. But because of the countywide digital transformation strategy, that was actually identified as an anchor point, which means we have a little bit of time where we're going to work together to potentially get a software all together. And so that is slated for a project in 2025. So we are requesting to council to utilize the money that we initially set aside, of $3,000 of that for the implementation of this software. And we're happy to answer any questions.
We've already answered my main question, so I'll
Okay.
go to members of council for any questions on the process. So we have a resolution, I'm assuming, to proceed with the project. So could I have a mover and a seconder then? Councilors Barry and Richards.
Moved by Council Barry, second by Council Richards. Be it resolved that council receives Treasury Report TT 3424 regarding new software purchase for the Finance Department for information, and council authorized the purchase of Quadrian accounts payable by Beanworks Software by a single source procurement of a cost of $3,000 plus applicable taxes. And further, council authorizes the initial $3,000 cost for implementation be funded by redirecting the provincial modernizational funding that was set aside for future purchase of cemetery software, and further that the new cemetery software purchase be funded from cemetery operating funds, and that council authorizes the mayor and clerk to execute an agreement with the final form and content being to the satisfaction of the treasurer and the CAO with Guardian accounts payable by Beanworks.
All in favor? That's carried.
Thank you very much.
Well
Mayor.
prepared pitch, ladies.
Wow, thank you.
Thank
Okay, next on the agenda under communications business is the launch of digital newsletters. Pardon me? Ah, Good afternoon, Mr. Ingram.
Hey, good afternoon, council. How are you?
So far, so good.
Okay, you can hear me and see me?
Yep.
Excellent. Going to give you a preview here of the digital newsletter, just so you can have an idea what it looks like. And are you able to see my screen at this time?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, so this is created through the newsletter function on Bang the Table on Let's Connect. And up front here we have our firefighter awards, some photos, those who are recognized. We have an update on the green burials at St. Stephen's. This is a snippet from the conversation of last meeting. We have the opening of the new Dorset branch at the DRC. We have some information on the STR registration system and links to the system, links to information about it, contact information for Rob and Sean. Snowball down here, the fact that we're recruiting some volunteers for Snowball, some contact info for Sandra. The new grader, Batmobile, because it's neat. Have some tips for Christmas recycling. Link here as well to the Waste Wizard. Further down, this is more ways to have your say. So this is advertising the new Q&A forum and digital suggestion box on Let's Connect forum. And then down here we have a did you know factoid about the asset management plan. Then some connections to our social media at the bottom. So this is sort of the general gist layout. We'll do this every month with different content is the idea. I don't know if there's any questions or comments or feedback.
Well, personally, I'm really, really happy to see us implementing this. One of the things that we keep hearing is that, we're not getting enough information out there, or people aren't looking in the right places for information, and I'm just glad to see that we can continue to promote some of the work that we're doing, get information out to people that they need to know. My only question would be if the avenue for the newsletter is Let's Connect, if there's way to direct people to Let's Connect, or if there are other ways of sharing the newsletter.
So what I'm going to do, and a lot of times, like with surveys on Let's Connect, you have to be a registered member, right? But I'm going to make this completely public, so you don't have to be registered. Ideally, people will still subscribe to it through their email. So I'm going to set up a subscription page on the Let's Connect site for people to leave their email addresses. They'll receive it directly to their inbox in the fashion that you've just seen. However, I'm also going to essentially copy it and archive it on the corporate site, the township site. So it'll be in both of those places, and then use social media to direct people to those places.
Questions or comments from council? Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Yeah, I love that we're doing this. I think it's fantastic. Two questions. One, do you anticipate that when the branding committee, I think that's what we're calling it, but the subcommittee that's going to be looking at the look and feel of all of our outward facing persona, might take a stab at like some kind of look and feel for the newsletter as well, so that, to make it really eye-catching, or I'm not sure, but would this be part of what the branding committee talks about? That's one question.
It could be this is a template, and the one on Bang the Table is fairly restrictive. So there's not a lot of opportunity for color. There's not a lot of opportunity for the way photos are displayed. It's actually fairly. This is the first time we've used it in this fashion. It's actually fairly rigid that way. So we could work on graphics that I would import as photos, basically, that could be, you know, kind of decorative graphics, you know, branded graphics. But in terms of colored headlines, for example, like that is not possible on this particular template. That doesn't mean we can't look into new templates. They would just there would be an expense associated with those.
Yes, follow-up question?
Yeah, no, that's good to know. And then my second question is, although I already see it in what you're presenting, do you have a deliberate mechanism in your mind for making sure that, for example, each new newsletter is a quarter about council decisions, a quarter about public education, a quarter about upcoming events? Like, do you have proportions in mind for how you want to see those roll out? Each one the same?
Yeah, I mean, you sort of hit it there. Like certainly having at least some council discussion, I think, is important. Awards and recognition, that sort of thing. More you know, programming towards the bottom. I mean, I don't think there needs to be a strict formula in that every month is going to be slightly different, but I think the idea is to ensure that every newsletter is covering all those bases. It's not ever just about programming or just about council. It's this kind of more holistic thing, looking at what's happening on in any given month.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
that's great. And I could certainly see if, you know, if this works for staff and for council, that our committees of council would, I'm sure, have tons of stuff that we could support for content in terms of public education, you know, everything from the museums to environment and stewardship. And, you know, it's a great avenue to get the good work of those committees out there.
As a follow-up to something that you mentioned about the branding committee, at the risk of asking something you might not have an answer to right away, what's your thinking on when the branding committee would meet?
Whenever it's convenient for those of us who are members. I don't know if there's an appetite to start before the Christmas break at this point in time or directly after. I know that there's you know, projects and priorities and budget is starting and what have you. So really we could do that at any time. It's at your convenience, really, whenever anybody is available.
You're probably on the money when it comes to timing before Christmas, because there's a lot happening. But you know, maybe you could throw out some dates and a bit of a doodle poll for getting us together.
Sure. Yeah, we'll do. I'll make a note of that for sure.
Any other questions or comments on the newsletter? Hearing none, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Barry.
I'm happy to hear that it's going to be public. I know from someone who just gets deterred when you have to sign up and register and make a password and all of that. It's nice to think it's going to be public. I just see on your screen, maybe this is a stupid question, but if, you know, I see that, oh, that's my uncle in that photo, I can just forward that to someone else. That link can be shared in perpetuity.
Yeah. The links are part of the document, right?
And then my other question is this going to strictly be Algonquin Highlands led, or is there going to be community groups that are like, hey, how do we get something put on your newsletter? And is that something that we have to worry about?
So certainly when it comes to the website, we don't do third party anything. My preference would be to keep it that way for the newsletter as well, because I think you will be overrun with people wanting you to advertise their poker run or their fishing derby or whatever. And certainly in my mind, that's not the venue for this. This is informational, township information in my mind.
I just wanted to.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think we could get overrun with requests for information, and I'm pretty sure, you know, for a monthly newsletter, if we're going to get information out about, you know, some of the decisions that councils have made, some of the information that say committees want to get out there, that there'll be enough information that, at that level without going to the outside.
I think so.
Any other questions? Well, thanks very much, Chad. It's great to see this. Finding, when's our first newsletter going to go out?
So it'll go the second week of December. I'm going to do them the second week of each month, and that is because it'll fall in between the two meetings. So therefore, the February newsletter can contain some information from the first February meeting, and so on and so forth. So the beginning of the second week of every month.
Okay, great. Could I have a mover and a seconder to receive the report? Councillor Surreed and Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Moved by Councillor Short-Reed, seconded by Deputy Mayor Dayu. Be it resolved, Council received communications report COM 424 regarding the launch of the monthly digital newsletter for information, and that Council directs staff to proceed with the publication of monthly digital newsletters.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Chad.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Next up is planning business. Good afternoon, Mr. O'Callaghan.
Afternoon, Mayor and Council.
So your first item is the Committee of Adjustment update.
Yes, thank you. So this is just the Committee of Adjustment minutes from our previous meeting of November 1st. So happy to answer any questions should council have any.
Questions from council? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder to receive the minutes of November the 1st? Councillor Short-Reed and seconded by Councillor Berry.
Moved by Councillor Short-Reed, seconded by Councillor Berry. Be it resolved, the Council receives the November 1st, 2024 Committee of Adjustment meeting minutes for information.
All in favor? That's carried. The next discussion is on, as a result of a notice of motion by Councillor Richards to have a discussion on camping on residential property. So we have a report from our planner with some thoughts and information, which you've offered just for our consideration, I'm assuming, unless there are some points that you want to highlight or bring to our attention.
No, this was really just to bring forward as information for council and seek further direction. So as council is aware, currently our zoning bylaw restricts camping to established trailer parks. You can also have a trailer on temporary basis while you have an open building permit and constructions taking place. So what I've done with this report is just outline what some other communities have done to permit some form of temporary trailer use on properties. But that's really just to help inform council's discussion and seek further direction on how council wishes staff to proceed.
I really appreciate the information you provided because you just used the word trailer. And, when it first came to my mind, we talked about camping. I think about tents, not trailers, and didn't realize that tents actually come under the same definition, which is interesting. Good reminder for me. This was brought to the forefront by yourself, and maybe you'd like to speak to what your intentions were with wanting to have this discussion before we go any further.
Yeah, I mean, I think many of our residents may be surprised to learn that they can't put a tent in their backyard for their kids for the week or something like that.
Is that what it actually says, though?
Technically speaking, yes, you can't camp on developed residential property or vacant residential property. Enforcing that is admittedly an issue. I mean, it's if it's occurring over a weekend, then it's not likely to be enforced. Frankly, if it's an ongoing activity and it becomes a bit of an issue, then that's where.
So if a family, on a developed property has friends coming to visit or family coming to visit for a month and their kids want to camp in the backyard for that month, you're saying that technically speaking, it's against the law.
That's correct.
Carry on, sorry. I just wanted that clarification.
Yeah. So I think that's a bit
Harsh?
harsh, excessive. And I'm not saying that a month is appropriate by any means. I do think it should certainly be time limited. I see some of the examples are showing at 14 days. My mind was more conservative at 7, but you know, I think there should be some allowance. I mean, as a kid, I certainly tented in my backyard and I don't see a problem with it if it's temporary. I wouldn't want it to get out of hand. I wouldn't want it to replace traditional housing. And certainly we don't want, multiple camping going on residential property without proper systems in place.
So do you see any differentiation in your thinking between a developed property and family members camping for a period of time and or a vacant piece of residential land, rural land in particular, and people camping on that and doing that for any duration of time?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I think certainly we had a recent circumstance where the land's use would likely only be appropriate to camping on, but with considerations to service available, I'd still want to see that it was limited and not permanent by nature of camping be allowed on vacant property. I think of hunt camps, etc. There would still have to be mechanisms in place to protect our certainly our waterfront designations, our environment in general, as far as I would say particularly was waste specifically. But given that 80% of Algonquin Highlands, as we know, is Crown land, it's really happening here anyway, because you are allowed to camp on Crown land.
But if I understand there's a limited period of time which you can stay in one location, right?
Right, 21 days, but there's no septic requirements for that.
That's the part that worries me too.
Yeah, so, I would like us to be a little bit more controlled than that, but have some mechanism to allow for it.
I'll go to Sean and then yourself.
So I just want to make it clear from a staff perspective, there are some serious concerns when it comes to camping on vacant land versus developed land. There are, like you said, lots of areas where camping is permitted as a principal use through zoning, Crown land, established campgrounds, things like that, with proper services in place to accommodate that kind of use. When it comes to developed properties, I mean, if it is additional people staying on the property, they're going to be using the septic system there that's designed for a certain capacity, albeit for a short period of time. There's still those additional concerns, but not as much as the vacant lot where there's absolutely nothing there to accommodate human habitation on that property. And further to that, I mean, these vacant lots are zoned in a way where someone could buy an adjacent piece of property with the expectation that it's going to be a home that's developed on there, not something that's going to be used for temporary accommodation for an ongoing basis. So just to add that bit of information for council's information.
So if council was going to give consideration to allowing camping on, say, rural property, I think we might want to look carefully at waterfront property and what would be like. I could see somebody being allowed their kids to set up a tent or visitors to set up a tent on a developed waterfront lot for a short period of time, where you might want to look at different regulations on rural land. I'm particularly concerned about water and sewer and, health regulations on any kind of long-term basis. We'll go to you and then back over to Deputy Mayor Day.
I do wonder if council should consider, and I'm not sure if I'm hearing the differentiation or not, and I don't think there should be, between camping with a tent and camping with a trailer. Because if you're gonna allow tents, there is no ability for washroom facilities, where in most trailers there is. It's a contained unit. So if you're gonna allow backyard tenting, I would assume council then wouldn't restrict trailers.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about, the number of properties that we see right now with trailers set up in backyards. We know that we have a housing shortage and a serious housing shortage and a homeless problem. And you see a trailer that's not supposed to be on a property, but somebody's is living there and not supposed to be living there, and yet they've got nowhere else to go. And I really struggle with that. And, I'm not quite sure how we deal with that. And so I'm seeing that, if we're going to make a change in our zoning bylaw, we need to break it down into a number of different scenarios. Deputy Mayor Dayu.
On the CAO's point, I rather see trailers in that case as more of a dwelling than as a camping sort of experience. I know that there are definitions as to what a dwelling is, but it's like a self-contained, it's a house, it's just on wheels. Whereas when I think of camping, I am thinking about a tent, and I think of how people, young family might save for some time in order to buy a little piece of vacant land, and they're gonna have to save for another 50 years before they can build anything on it. But in the meanwhile, they want to enjoy that space. They want to pitch a tent and take their kids and remind their kids of what it feels like to be in nature and to develop that relationship with their environment. Knowing that, as Councillor Richards pointed out, next door is a piece of Crown land where there might be, such as close to Crown Lake here in Algonquin Highlands, up to 40 people staying at any one time on a tiny little plot with dug out houses, which are literally 2 or 3 feet away from the waterfront, which are completely unregulated. It's hard to tell someone who owns a piece of property and pays taxes for that property that they can't do on their property what other people are able to do in Crown land right next door. And for me, the trick is how to just avoid the pitfalls of what's going on every day in the summer in Crown land at some woeful examples right here in Algonquin Highlands, how to avoid those pitfalls while still enabling people to enjoy the private property that they've purchased.
Well, and I know that Councillor Barry put forth a scenario to me that, okay, a young couple buys a piece of property. They finally managed to save up enough money to buy the piece of property. It's going to be a little bit of time before they can actually develop that piece of property. And they want to pitch a tent, and dream and view the property and think about, where they might want to put stuff. And you sort of think, well, what would be wrong with that? As long as they're not doing it on any kind of lengthy basis and have some method of dealing with facilities. I still, you've kind of, where my mind went first was the tent, and I've really thought about the fact that we're talking under the same definition, something that's got totally different facilities. So, it's complicated. So I guess if you want this to be further developed, is it the desire of council to have staff, bring back some suggestions about what we could do under different scenarios? And would you want the same things for rural property as you do for shoreline property? I'm thinking probably not, depending on what we're looking at. Councillor Shortreed?
If you're only doing it for, like Councillor Richards said, 7 days, it's not gonna be long, so whether it's on waterfront or rural, it's only for 7 days. But then it's 7 days, it could be every 2 weeks, 7 days,
Or a month or longer.
yeah.
John?
Sorry, so I was interpreting that as 7 days for the entire year. It would be the max that they would be able to camp. That's how other bylaws are worded. So you
But-
have like a total of 14 days throughout the year, or 7 days throughout the year you could use, no more than 3 consecutive days, something like that. Now also, I do want council to know that this is not something that we typically receive as an inquiry when people are looking at vacant land is, can I camp on it? And in the rare circumstances when they do ask that question, they understand typically that no, that's not permitted, but once you have a building permit in place, you can. Now, I have also discussed this with our bylaw department, and where they are seeing issues is, I think, more on developed pieces of property where there's a trailer that's set up on a permanent basis, and no permit in place. So that's more of an issue that we're dealing with versus the vacant land side of things.
Do you have your hand up? Go ahead. And then over to you.
If I may, Mayor, I just want to also add about the shoreline properties. I would caution council on the tenting on shoreline properties that are vacant. Because again, if the family is tenting to dream the dream, whatever they're doing, there is no washroom facilities on the shoreline.
Hmm.
It is very different in, with a trailer potentially, because there is washroom facilities, at least there isn't with a tent. So I just want to caution council on the shoreline piece, whether it's tent or trailer.
Yeah, and I had kind of been breaking it down between tents, trailers, shoreline versus rural, that we'd have to look at all sides of it. Councillor Richards, and then, I'm sorry, you were next. Go ahead.
I would like to see a breakdown of all scenarios so that we can kind of maybe pick and choose where it's appropriate and what's appropriate. To try to gain as much, or maintain as much control as we can to avoid issues, affecting water quality and environment, et cetera.
Impact on septic system.
Yeah, because we do want to make sure we don't want somebody, with now the ability to operate short-term rentals of tents.
Glamping.
Right? So I think it's important that we try to maintain as much control as we possibly can. And yet, at the same time, I absolutely do agree with Deputy Mayor Dayu. 80% of our land is crown and it's happening anyway. And we have no control over it at all. So some consideration there, on our part, I think it needs to be realistic.
Deputy Mayor Dayu, and then over to you, Councillor Barry.
I could certainly contemplate a shoreline allowance or permit for this, presuming, for example, there is a class 1 septic there. So either an outhouse or a composting toilet or something that just makes sure that human waste is being taken care of. We've got those throughout the township. We have a way of making sure they work well. I could see how that could be a condition for camping in tents. And I do completely understand there's the trailer question there. I'd like to sort of see those at least considered separately, even if we bring them together in the same bylaw in the end. I don't think we can paint them with the same brush in the contemplation of the thing.
Councillor Barry, and I apologize for stealing some of your thunder.
No, that's okay. I do support this issue. I've definitely talked about this during several bylaw reviews over the last few terms. And I see, there's a lot of families out there that are just trying to have one property, let alone a second property. And you can see that just with the local economy, and the whole Airbnb, and camping, I think if you have been able to access a piece of property that you're paying taxes on annually, you should be able, even if it's through a permit process, to be able to stay on your land with as little environmental impact as possible. I know there's a lot of families that can't afford to go on long vacations, and there's people that maybe can't afford to, you know, go and rent an Airbnb for a week or 2 weeks. And I just think there's something, you know, all of our mottos are on, you know, this is where nature begins and that type of thing. And I would like to see some support for how people who have property can be able to actually enjoy it instead of just waiting until there's a primary residence on it.
Mr. O'Callaghan.
Just on the subject of housing, I'm just picturing a vacant lot where someone now buys this with the intent of only camping on it a couple weeks out of the year. That's a lot that's never going to have a house on it, or at least in the near term. And it's just essentially a lot that you're taking out of the bank of vacant lots that we have throughout the township. So it's really not promoting development in the community. So that's just an additional concern that staff would have when looking at vacant lots versus permitting it on a developed lot already.
Councillor Richards.
Aren't we going to shortly be looking at perhaps removing the discounts people are getting for vacant lots? And so that would inherently counteract that of you know, promoting development on those vacant lands rather than not having to pay as high taxes. Something the federal
I could only
government
hear about half of what you said.
Isn't the federal government going to start working with municipalities to try to stop
Sorry to laugh outright at
the
that.
advantage of remaining vacant? You know, right now they don't have to pay the taxes because they're a vacant lot. But that's something that should be changed to promote development.
Right now I wouldn't, well, I should just, never mind, I won't say that. Councillor Shortreed, did you have a comment? Oh, I'm sorry, thought I saw your hand up. So I think what we're hearing is that we'd like Sean to bring us back some scenarios about how, you know, what we could do and splitting it out into shoreline versus rural and trailers versus tents. And I know that that your workload is substantial at the moment. So, you know, I'm not sure kind of what timeline your expectations are for getting a report back on this.
Well, I would request a bit more clarification on what exactly it is council's looking for. If council could break it down, if you're interested in having this permitted on vacant lots, I think that would help staff in developing some sort of draft policy to bring forward. As opposed to developing multiple policies and bringing that.
I was kind of hoping it could all come together in one policy without, but I am hearing that there are members of council who believe that there should be some allowance for camping on vacant lots, as long as there's some, you know, allowance for a permit process maybe, or allowance for facilities. I personally believe that there should be a difference between, you know, waterfront properties and rural properties. And I think that we're also looking for something that that would be, you know, that we could put out there with respect to developed properties in a time frame. You know, I was a little gobsmacked at the idea that your kids couldn't pitch a tent in your own backyard. That's nuts. In a technical term. Go ahead.
Well, I respect your interest in looking at rural versus waterfront. I'll repeat, for me, that doesn't make any difference. We have setbacks for a reason, and we've got, you know, some waterfront properties that are 300 acres in size. And it doesn't, for me, it doesn't make sense that we would say you can't camp on that, but the 1 acre rural property beside you, you could. So if we could just keep that an open part of the conversation. I think there are ways of mitigating those risks.
With setbacks.
Mm.
If it's a large parcel, you know, that's, you know, I hear you.
And I'm not a planner, so I don't know if we could apply setbacks. I don't know how that would happen. I just think that it's a categorization that maybe is too rigid, and there could be a way of working with both.
Madam CAO.
If I could maybe throw a recommendation or a suggestion out, this would be a big change for the community. Even though it does happen on Crown land, I'm wondering if there's opportunity for public input on it.
I was just hearing, the word survey was just screaming through my mind. To see what people
Because
think.
it is entirely possible that the community doesn't want it.
Well, I think that's a good idea, but you know, before we put too much work into developing a policy, or, I mean, we need more information ourselves. But I'd want to take a pretty good look at the survey too. Just, I mean, not to that, I'm not saying that we would develop the survey, but just to make sure that once the survey was developed, that we're asking the questions for, you know, we're going to get what we're looking for. How's council feel about that? Deputy Mayor Dayu?
I think I would prefer to see what some of our options are first before we put it to a surveys. So that we really know what we're asking. Because if we ask something like, hey, do you think that we should have people camping on waterfronts on vacant lots? You know, there could be disaster scenarios that occur to people, like real nightmare scenarios. And if there's a way of making sure that we're talking about a very educated, informed, respectful way of doing it, we might get a closer answer to what we're actually proposing.
Councilor Richards?
I prefer that approach as well. I think a survey at this point is premature. And I don't know, I bottom line is I feel that the majority do not have a problem with a kid pitching a tent in the backyard for the weekend. So,
But they might
I-
have
I
a problem
know
with
that it-
somebody setting up a house, like
well, yeah,
a tent on a semi-permanent basis on a vacant lot.
yeah. So, you know, I think we should start with the basics and where we want to go and how we could control that. And then possibly seek public input, but in this particular circumstance, I'm not entirely sure public input is required.
I think public input will be required at some point in time. It's just a determining when it's best to happen. Any thoughts on that, Councillor Barry?
I mean, I think it could be seen as like opening this massive can of worms, but I think the truth is there's a lot of people that like to sleep with a roof over their head and running water. And I think for the small amount of people that this would actually be appealing to, I don't think it's as big of an issue as maybe it sounds, considering how much it's happening on Crown land anyway. What we're saying here is that it would be by people that already own property. And I think it should be noted in this that we're kind of opening this discussion opposed to closing the opportunity. So this right now isn't a permitted use. We're trying to find a way that it could be permitted, even if it's in a permit basis. You know, we talk about stewards of the land every time we open a meeting, and I think that this is an opportunity to show respect, how we can have a respectful, you know, experience on property in the Algonquin Highlands.
So what else do you need from us with respect to bringing some information back?
I think I have a good start here, where I can start to develop some sort of draft policy to bring back for review. Yeah.
Okay, and I mean, that would probably help us sort of pin things down a little bit further once we've got something for you, or you've got something for us, I mean. Okay. Could I have a mover and a seconder to receive Sean's report? Deputy Mayor Dayu, Councillor Barry. Did you have a question, Councillor Berry, for the comment?
Moved by Deputy Mayor Dayu, second by Councillor Berry. Be it resolved, Council receives planning report PL 9624 regarding camping on residential property for information, and Council directs staff to report back to Council with further information.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you for bringing up that most complicated issue. Next up is the ability to get insurance for licenses of occupation. And I'd really like to thank you for your work on this, Sean. You know, this is innovative and unanticipated, but good news for a lot of people, I think.
Yes, well, I do have to thank Sarah and Angie very much for their assistance in this. They certainly spearheaded this effort, so.
Well, thank you, ladies, as well.
But yes, what we have before council today is a potential insurance option that we could offer as part of the license of occupation policy that council has implemented. We were hearing concerns from the public about obtaining sufficient insurance to adequately meet the policy. So in discussions with the insurer for the township, they provided us with a potential program that we're understanding is the first of its kind to be offered, where we would offer these applicants the ability to purchase a policy through the municipal insurer, both, well, either at a $2 million limit or a $5 million limit they put forward, with differing costs there outlined in my report. So staff are seeking direction from council on whether to make this program mandatory as part of the license of occupation policy, whether to make it optional, as well as to either put both options for coverage forward, being the 2 million and 5 million, or just the one, being the 2 million, which council previously approved as part of the policy.
You know, as to the options, I mean, obviously I'll go around the table. I do think that if someone is able to get their own insurance and prefers to do that, that they should be able to do so. However, for anyone who has been unable to find an insurer, this gives them an option. And they can choose. If this is a cheaper option than what they're being offered by their own insurer, they've got a choice. And I like to see the choice remain. And I also, we had a considerable conversation about the level of insurance required, and council determined as a whole that the $5 million requirement was too much. You know, despite standards that are set in other areas, we landed on the $2 million requirement, and I still believe that that's fair for this particular circumstance. So to me, that would also remain a choice for the public. If they want to have more insurance on their property, they've got the ability to do that through this program. I'm just really pleased to see that people will have options and the ability to get insurance. Thoughts from other members of council? We'll go to Sarah first.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. So I just wanted to note, and this may not change council's decision on to implement 2 or 5, but I did have in many discussions with the insurance company. I was pleased. I think we were pleased that they were able to offer 5. And just want to note that if a claim were to happen and it exceeds the $2 million, there is potential for the owner of the license to be held personally responsible for anything over 2 million. And if, depending on the statement of claim, it could also impact the township as well. So just something to bear in mind, that the insurance company said us to they said it to us many times, 5 is the new 2. So just want to note that for council's consideration, that it is in the best interest of the license holders as well to have the option for 5 million, as well as the townships.
Councillor Richards.
On that, could we say the requirement is to 2, but allow them to have the option to go higher, and if they choose to, they choose to?
That's exactly what they've got right now. Yeah, they would have that option,
So,
knowing that could be a risk.
I think it's great that we finally got this. I know we've been working on it for a while and it's been, top secret until we had it. But the cost is kind of high, and I would expect that the reason the cost is high is because this is new. It's kind of like the first of its kind, and hopefully going forward as the insurance industry adjusts, this is something that can come down. My other question is, I see we have a sample of the application. Is it possible to get a sample of what the policy would look like so that any potential applicants are able to take it to their own insurer and say, okay, this is the insurance that the township is wanting. Can you comparatively cost it to add to my policy? So that they can have a better informed decision on whether or not they take the townships or if their insurer is willing to give them something discounted.
Go
If I
ahead.
may, through you, Mayor. Yes, so certainly we can provide more details. The intent of the policy is that it's a policy collectively. So very much as more information is collected on claims, because that's essentially what will set the premium. So perhaps, I mean, I think we couldn't comment because it could go the other way. If claims were to happen, there is the chance it could increase. The nice thing, and we can certainly, so what will happen is once this application's filled out, it goes to our insurer and they receive a certificate of insurance. They will receive instructions on how to file claims, similar to exactly how they would handle personally. What we gathered in the information through our many conversations is that the hardest part for a personal policy is that it's really hard to have that additionally insured. So it's really hard for personal policies. And again, the insurance said that will be very challenging to achieve for individuals. So this solution is actually stemming to be able to do that, to ensure that both the property owner and the township are protected. And in order to get to the limit of, we were hoping, like, you know what I mean, to have the 2 million as council wanted with the opportunity to have 5.
Okay.
I had another question as far as coverage is concerned. When we're talking about an encroachment, we're talking about an encroachment that is not necessarily a structure. Could be they dug a hole and didn't fill in the hole because they're going to plant a tree tomorrow. And somebody happens to walk by and steps in that hole and falls. By creating that hole, they've created an encroachment onto municipal land and a liability concern that therefore needs to be covered. So I just want to clarify, when we're talking about an encroachment, it's anything that they do to the land that causes a problem or a potential problem. It's not simply a structure. It's anything that they do to land that they don't own.
Structures.
Well, if I can.
Go ahead.
I think I want to clarify with Sean, maybe encroachment. The encroachment is something that we don't own on our land. So that could look like many different ways. So an encroachment could essentially be a shore road allowance. It could be a road allowance, but essentially is the use. Am I explaining it right, planner Sean?
Yeah, essentially the area that they would be under control. Now, it was my understanding that it would primarily deal with just structures and that the municipal policy would cover the land component of it. So there is, the example you provided is
The trickiest she could have come up
yeah,
with.
yeah, a bit of a gray area for sure. So, yeah.
Go ahead.
I can just follow up with that because it actually happened to me. The boulevard in front of my house, somehow, and I don't remember digging a hole, but apparently a hole got there. Maybe it was one of those animals that come along and they burrow a hole. Anyway, a hole appeared in the boulevard out front my house and somebody tripped and fell in it. And they sued the municipality, who called me and said, where did the hole come from? And I was like, well, I don't know. So thankfully, I never heard anything further about it. But that's why I'm asking is maybe we need some clarification from the insurer on what exactly we're asking to be insured here and where the differentiation comes between the license holder and the municipality goes as far as those circumstances.
Structures versus land.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the example we were using, and you brought it up before, Sarah, was if someone were to slip and fall under the dock on the land. So both the township and the applicant will be named in that scenario, and I think the same would apply in this particular case. I believe the intention is really the policy that the applicants will be getting is for any structures that they have on the land subject to the license. I'm sure there's infinite number of scenarios where, I mean, the one that you provided where it's a bit of a gray area. The intention with this policy is really just to best cover the municipality as well as the applicants with the information that we have. It would be difficult to develop a policy that could incorporate every possible scenario.
And how the insurance company might react to it. They seem to rule our lives. So bottom line is that you need a decision from us on whether or not.
I think Councillor Barry has a question. I see her.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Barry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to seek clarification similar to I guess what Sarah has said in regards to if someone were to trip and fall off of a dock, but they actually injured themselves on the land. Would the township have to be on all of these properties that are entering into these licenses? Would we also have to carry insurance on the same property if we're both liable?
Go ahead, Sarah.
So through you, Mayor, we already have insurance on all the lands, on all of our lands. They're all insured. This will protect if there was a claim and as a result, our insurance would need to cover said claim. It won't impact our municipal insurance policy. So our municipal main insurance policy is that what is the umbrella that insures absolutely everything, our vehicles, our buildings, absolutely everything. And claims are what tend to drive the premiums and our claim history. This protects the township's main policy in the event of a claim, and it keeps it strictly to that specific area and keeps it to the 5 million liability for protection of the township as well as the license holder. Does that answer that, Councillor Berry?
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So are there any other questions? So the decisions to be made are, do the applicants have a choice of going to their own insurance company, or would we make it mandatory? Deputy Mayor Dayu?
I agree with everything you mentioned earlier, choice all round.
And choice on whether or not they took out either the 2 or the 5. And yourself, Councillor Berry? Yeah.
I support that.
Okay, could I have a mover and a seconder to that effect? Councillor Short-Reed, Councillor Berry.
By Councillor Short-Reed, second by Councillor Barry. Be it resolved, Council receives planning report PL 9724 regarding license of occupation insurance for information. The council supports the implementation of the new insurance program through the township's insurer and selects option 1 as the annual minimum coverage requirement. And further, that applicants may choose to participate in the township's insurance program or provide the required insurance through their own insurance provider.
All in favor? That's carried. Do we have any kind of listing of folks who have inquired or said, I can't get insurance, what do I do? I'm just wondering about how we get this information out to ensure that those impacted know that they've got this opportunity.
So I don't have a specific list, but I can certainly work with our communications coordinator to make sure the word is out there.
Okay, right on. So the next item on your agenda is the request for a community mailbox at the Kinesis River subdivision.
Thank you. Yes, this is a request that came in from Greg Bishop Survey and Consulting with respect to their subdivision on the Kinesis River and just regarding the community mailbox location. So Canada Post has identified a location. And in speaking with our public works manager, I'm suggesting that council be supportive of the location in principle, subject to final approval by our public works department.
And it's my understanding that we have no responsibility for winter plowing or maintenance around the mailbox.
Yes, that's the intent. Yeah.
Okay. Thoughts, questions? So could I have a mover and a seconder then that we move forward with provisional approval? Councilors Shortreed and Deputy Mayor Dayoud.
Moved by Councilor Shortreed, second by Deputy Mayor Dayoud. Be it resolved, council receives planning report PL 9824 regarding a community mailbox location for draft plan of subdivision 4016-91001, part lot 17, concession 9 and 10, geographic Township of Stanhope. Greg Bishop Surveying and Consulting for information, and that council supports the installation in principle on township property, subject to the final location approval by the Public Works Manager, and further that the general maintenance of the community mailbox, including snow removal, shall not be the responsibility of the township.
All in favor? That's carried. Next is a proposed Shore Road allowance closing on McFadden Lake.
Thank you. Yes, this is an application to close the shore road allowance in front of this property. They did provide a survey as part of the application, and on the survey, it was noted that a portion of the septic system of the neighboring property appears to have been constructed over the lot line projection partially. So staff are suggesting the application be approved in principle, but subject to that encroachment being corrected before the actual lands be closed and stopped up and closed and sold.
Any questions or concerns? Hearing none, can I have a mover and a seconder? Councilor Shortreed, Councilor Barry.
Moved by Councilor Shortreed, seconded by Councilor Barry. Be it resolved, council receives planning report PL 10324 regarding the proposed shore road allowance closing fronting property located at part of lot 15, concession 6, geographic Township of McClintock, McFadden Lake, and that council approves in principle application OSR A 1724 made to stop up, close, and convey the said shore road allowance, and that the applicants are requested to proceed in accordance with the shoreline road allowance closing procedure once the encroachment of the neighboring property owner's septic system has been addressed to the satisfaction of the planner.
All in favor? That's carried. Next is the approval of the slight change to the location of the Rogers Communications Tower on Wren Lake.
Yes, thank you. This is the, as you mentioned, the tower on Wren Lake, where they're proposing to change the location. So council in the October meeting requested that Rogers recirculate properties on the lake as well as within 500 meters of the revised site. So that has been completed and no objections were received. So staff are recommending approval of the revised location.
Comments or questions? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder then to approve the revised location? Councilors Richards and Shortreed.
Moved by Councilor Richards, seconded by Councilor Shortreed. Be it resolved, council receives planning report PL 10424 regarding proposed Rogers Telecommunications Tower Site C8524 for information, and that council has satisfied the procedures in the township's telecommunication facility installations policy have been followed in order to comply with the requirements for the consultation with the public and land use authority for the tower proposal. And further, council directs staff to advise Roger Communications, Inc. that council supports the installation of a 60-meter telecommunications tower known as Rogers Site C8524 as amended 1138 Moynes Trail, part of lots 8, 9, and 10, concession A, geographic township of Sherburne, Wren Lake.
All in favor? That's carried. And finally, the creation of memorandums of understanding with, I think it's 2 snowmobile clubs to transfer or traverse across municipal lands.
Yes, thank you. There was a late addition, so there is now 3 clubs that are included in this report. And I believe this stemmed from the OFSC requiring each of these clubs to have these memorandums of understanding with lands, private lands, or public lands that they cross. So it is to our benefit as well to have these in place. I mean, there's a pretty substantial insurance coverage protecting the municipality from any potential liability concerns. So staff are supportive of entering into these understandings. One thing to note is that we are putting a timeline of 10 years on each of them, so that they would have to come back within that time frame to renew that. But other than that, there's nothing of particular note. These are established trails that have been in place for some time.
Any questions or concerns? Could I have a mover and a seconder then to move forward with the MOUs? Deputy Mayor Dayu, Councillor Richards.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Dayu, seconded by Councillor Richards. Be it resolved, council receives report PL 10524 regarding the Snowmobile Club memorandum of understandings for information, and council concurs with the recommendations contained in the said report and authorizes staff to enter into memorandums of understanding for the noted snowmobile trails. And further, council hereby authorizes the CAO to sign the required memorandums of understanding.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Oh, you're not interested in staying for the rest of the meeting? Thanks for coming. So next are reports on external board meetings, starting with the Dorset Partnership and Health Hub.
We won't have anything till after Christmas,
So they haven't met since the last time
the
we
end of
met.
October, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anything on the Upper Trent Water Management Partnership?
Nothing for the Upper Trent. The Muskoka watershed, there's a meeting tomorrow. They're also having a leadership workshop for integrated water management next week. But it happens to be on our day of projects and priorities.
I was disappointed to see that, but we know what our priorities are for that day. I'm tickled to say that I think I said this at the last meeting, but our first police detachment board meeting will be next Thursday, I think it is. I'm sorry, it's on the 29th. It's on the 29th. It's coming up soon. I'm really looking forward to that. And one of the things that we'll be doing, we'll be choosing a chair for the detachment board and talking about the work that needs to be done for setting terms of reference for the board and for any subcommittees of the board. I know that some draft documents are being prepared now by our community safety and well-being coordinator in consolidation with consultants working with the police. So it'll be just exciting to get that on the go. I would say also that the detachment commander was present at the last county council meeting just to basically introduce himself and, say a little bit about, what his goals and aspirations were. Hopefully we can keep him for a while. I would say that years ago that the police used to come on at least an annual basis to each council to talk about concerns and and just sort of talk about what they've been doing. That practice is obviously not continued, but hopefully, with the detachment board in place and the communications through the county, that we'll be better informed. I tongue-in-cheek asked if we were going to be talking about the cost of policing, but it's not something that can be determined at this level, although there may be some information for us. I look forward to that. Anything that you'd like to bring forward on the library board?
No, nothing on the library board.
Anything else on community safety and well-being?
We did have a meeting recently. It was very good. And the one piece from the meeting that I would draw to your attention is we had a presentation on from the Rural Ontario Institute, which is found at ruralontarioinstitute.ca. And I have raised this group to council in the past, but I'll bring it back now because they've gone ahead and populated quite an incredible tool. It's called the Wellbeing Dashboard, and it's like a one-stop shop to find out information on critical demographic data in Ontario, I believe across all 444 municipalities, on things such as demographics, economics, housing, health, society, and environment. They can create reports that pull a bunch of data together and do something fairly custom for you as well at a cost recovery price. But just playing around with this dashboard is so interesting. You can see that according to this source in Algonquin Highlands, we are number 14 in terms of number of proportion of seniors living in our community. Out of 444 municipalities, we're number 14, and that's we all knew that in general, but it's lovely to have that actual piece of data that will be regularly updated, and so many other things can be found there, from housing affordability to what else we have, access to health services, long-term care, all of these things that either as council members or as staff, we can just go to for a really quick injection of contextual information for our thinking. So I do recommend it to all of you. Again, it's ruralontarioinstitute.ca, and it's the Wellbeing Dashboard.
Thank you. It's been my experience working with the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus that the Rural Ontario Institute is an absolutely excellent group to work with, and they've partnered with the Wardens Caucus on a number of projects and that have been very successful. And I know that they're also partnering with the Roma board on some projects. Just as well on community safety and well-being. Also on the 29th is going to be the youth art display, showing what youth think through their art about community safety and well-being. I think it's at the Legion in Halliburton. So, anybody who's interested in having a look at that, the last event that they had was absolutely eye-opening, to see what youth, their thoughts are, and to see it displayed through their art. And this time we can actually go in person as opposed to it being just solely online. So I think it will be online as well. But anyway, for anybody who's interested, it's definitely worthwhile. Anything on the Muskoka River Watershed Communications Committee?
No.
As far as county council update, there's been a couple of things that have taken place, I think, since our last meeting here. One, I'm not sure if we mentioned that we had our first session on strategic planning in the Stanhope Hall to do basically a SWOT analysis, and that was an excellent process. We've also had our first all of council budget session to talk about, I should proceed that by saying that there are two representatives plus myself who have looked at what's being proposed by staff and kind of gone over and asked any questions that we had. Surprisingly enough, at our first presentation, there was very little concern. I think that everything that could possibly have been done to keep the budget at as low a rate as possible had already been done. There are a couple of things that, couple of pieces of information that still need to come back to us. One being what the increase is going to be coming from the city of Kawartha Lakes for social services. There is a substantial, I think, something like $660,000 added to the county's budget, and that's a horrendous addition, which we will all have to bear, particularly when you look at the cost of the increased cost of OPP. So I think that the county staff have really done a good job, and which resulted in not a lot of questions or concerns being raised, but it will be coming back to us again, and we'll see what we hear. I'm just trying to think if there's something else we should be mentioning. Go ahead.
Just on the budget, there was one key takeaway that I had, which very much, I'm sure, is mirrored in Algonquin Highlands and the other lower tiers, and that is the amount of levy increase that is due to things that is not within our control. So right now, the county budget anticipated levy increase is 5.15%. That'll change, but that's what the first budget was presented as. And we were told that about 1% of that, one of the 5.1% is actually within the control of
The county.
county. The rest is all either inflation or increased bills from exterior agencies like the OPP or CKL, or catch up on things that the government, higher tiers of government are telling us we need to continue providing, but they are giving us less money for. So we need to find that additional funding somewhere else. And there were 4 or 5 different things that indicated to us that we did not have control over
Our budget.
over our own budget, to the tune of 4.15 out of 5.15%.
And that 5.15% was before we talked about what we would also add to the levy for the infrastructure gap. And last year, we added a 1% increase to start building towards being able to be in a sustainable position to improve our infrastructure based on what our asset management plan says. So that was the one major part of the discussion that took place, was whether we should go to what was being recommended was a 2% increase, stay with 1%, land on 1.5. We did land on 1.5. I think we landed on 1.5, generally speaking, but still subject to further clarification on anything that comes back to us at our next session. Anything else? Any questions on that? Okay, we do have a notice of motion, which has been moved by Deputy Mayor Dayu. Surrounding requests to use township property for commercial purposes. You want to speak to that a little bit before we you look for a seconder?
Sure, yeah. This comes in entirely from the recent request from the film company to use our land for filming purposes. And it's the first time in possibly a long while that we've had that sort of request. And it seemed from that conversation that there were things that they routinely do in places where they routinely go that we might just learn from and incorporate into a policy, such as a permit fee for this sort of use, which we couldn't apply because we don't have a permit policy on that. Insurance, security deposit, issues of the environment, what is in the snow? They said they would send us a fact sheet, but I'm not sure if we've received that or not, but is that something that we would want to know in advance of that coming to council? And other things like plans for announcing their intentions to the community that will be directly impacted. And it seems like there might be some scope here to just package all of that into a policy so that we're ready for the next time, knowing that the next time might be 30 years from now. So I don't think there's any urgency on this, but it was it seemed like an obvious next step given the conversation we had with the film company.
It did, based on the conversation we had. I kind of was of the impression that there was going to be either is or going to be a road occupancy policy, and that we could incorporate it into that, but it sounds like you're talking about something that's slightly beyond that. Good.
Yeah, if I may, I absolutely see that overlap, but I anticipate there may be other times when they want to use one of our museum spaces or one of our parks, and the road occupancy policy wouldn't cover their requested use. So this just allows for greater variability. But happy to go with, that way too, so long as there's provision in case the request comes that it isn't about roads.
Questions or thoughts from council on whether you want something to come back to us on that? Councillor Richards?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Not just for commercial purposes, but possibly nonprofit organizations as well that may want to utilize the space, or even individuals that want to maybe have a big wedding somewhere that has never been considered before. So I think it should be all inclusive of any circumstance where an outside party wishes to use municipal lands. And I do think it's, after that conversation from last week, very important that we have something in place going forward. Not necessarily urgent, but I wouldn't put it off too far.
Any comments from yourself?
Not at this time, no. I'd like some time to digest that, if I may.
Okay.
And we will certainly bring something back. Because we'll need to determine if it's not just a road occupancy, who in staff needs to be involved in that, obviously. And if we're talking not urgent, but not too far away, what can I get some clarity on that?
What does that mean? Within the first quarter of next year, I would say. Does that sound reasonable? Given that we're going to be continuing to work on budgets and that's going to be the priority. Or, I mean, is it something you want sooner, Councillor Richards?
I would have said maybe within the first half, but if our CAO feels within the first quarter is doable, then by all means, why put it off?
Madam Clerk?
So I just have to ask Deputy Mayor Dayu then, if the motion's seconded, you had requested for the discussion to take place on December 12th. Do you still want a more wholesome discussion on December 12th, or?
Oh, sorry, I guess, I jumped the gun with the discussion.
I think it's fairly straightforward, not necessarily simple to put together. There might be bouncing balls that I'm not familiar with, but I think the memory is fresh from our conversation, and I can't think of what else there is to
Makes sense.
say. So in actual fact, perhaps if the CAO has enough
First quarter?
information, we could just kind of
Go with
set
it.
it free. I was thinking much more along the lines of half a year or even a year. I don't foresee someone coming to us in the next few months. Wouldn't that be great? But I don't foresee it. So for me, it wasn't an urgent thing at all. I was thinking within a year.
When I said the first quarter, I was thinking, okay, anything that might come back to us, it wouldn't be until spring anyway. But if you want to go within the first half of next year, that's fine. Okay, I'm seeing, Councillor Barry, is that okay with you? Comments?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I do think there's a big difference between like a large production company wanting to use the facility and, I don't know, someone wanting to celebrate, I don't know, a christening or something. Like, I think having to have, a mass liability and a down payment and all of that, I don't know. I'm a little, I see them as different things.
I agree. I mean, the difference between a film company that's going to be making, mass money, although somebody said it was a false film, and somebody wanting to have like a small celebration, on municipal property are two different things. And so there needs to be some thought put into that. And as our CAO said, who's involved in the discussion? Because it's not just necessarily a road occupancy. Deputy Mayor Dayu?
I might request or suggest then that we start with, as it's written in the notice of motion, use of township property for commercial purposes. And then from that conversation, maybe we would add on to it, maybe we would have a different policy for other people, I'm not sure. But I think the intention here is when a company wants to come and make money in our township, how are we making sure that all of the bases are covered and that the township is getting something from that too, which is, as Councillor Barry says, quite different from a christening. Doesn't mean we can't do something later on, but I think that's the starting point.
Although, if you can put it all into one policy and just, have different levels rather than, trying to develop more than one policy, then we've got, have you looked at our policy manual lately? Sorry, didn't want to bring that up, but. Can I assume that you're a seconder for that motion?
Moved by Deputy Mayor Dayu, seconded by Councillor Richards. Be resolved, Council received a notice of motion from Deputy Mayor Dayu regarding a discussion item to be placed on December 12, 2024, regular council meeting agenda regarding a potential policy surrounding requests to use township property for commercial purposes, and that council direct staff to bring back information for discussion purposes in 2025.
All in favor? That's carried. Are there any other notices of motion? Hearing none, we'll move on to correspondence. Did anyone wish to address any of the correspondence? Could I then have a mover and a seconder to receive the correspondence listing? Councillor Short-Reed and Richards.
Moved by Councillor Short-Reed, seconded by Councillor Richards. Be it resolved that council receives the November 21st, 2024 correspondence listing for information.
All in favor? That's carried. Mover and a seconder for the bylaws. Councillor Short-Reed and Richards.
Moved by Councillor Short-Reed, seconded by Councillor Richards. Be it resolved the following bylaws be received and read a first time, considered read a second and third time, and finally passed with a corporate seal affixed. 2024-98 to authorize the execution of a memorandum of understanding with 12 Pound Snowmobile Club. 2024-106 to adopt the emergency management program and emergency response plan. 2024-107 to adopt terms of reference for the emergency management program committee. 2024-108 to stop up, close, and convey part of the original shore road allowance lying in front of Lot 8, Concession 4, Geographic Township of Livingston. 2024-109 to stop up, close, and convey part of the original shore road allowance lying in front of Lot 29, Concession 5, Geographic Township of Stanhope. 2024-110 to stop up, close, and convey to the abutting property owners part of original shore road allowance lying in front of Lot 3, Concession 1, Geographic Township of Stanhope. 2024-111 to authorize the execution of a memorandum of understanding with the Halliburton County Snowmobile Association, and 2024-112 to authorize the execution of a memorandum of understanding with the Algonquin Snowmobile Club.
All in favor? That's carried. Could I also have a mover and a seconder for the confirmatory bylaw? Councillors Richards and Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Moved by Councillor Richards, second by Deputy Mayor Dayu. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-105 to confirm proceedings of council held at its regular meeting on November 7th, 2024 be received and read a first time, considered read a second and third time, and finally passed with a corporate seal affixed.
All in favor? And finally, a motion to adjourn. Councillor Richards and Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Moved by Councillor Richards, second by Deputy Mayor Dayu. Be it resolved the meeting is hereby adjourned at 3:30.